Where's the flight?
No. Ah!
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCoTALK, episode 265. Special guest today, Paul Shoemaker.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Hello, everybody.
And welcome to the show.
And we hope you have a great day sitting here with us.
Even listening to David's voice, we hope that. Yes. So I guess we'll start off a little bit of project updates and acquisitions, and we'll do a quick little Ron's Garage update, and then we'll hit the game on stuff. So project updates and acquisitions. Rick Euland, I believe you had an update.
Oh, I suppose so. Let me change my face here. So FedEx did their usual great job, and I got this.
Hang
Can
on.
you spotlight him, Mark?
Where is he? Oh, there he is.
Just spotlight me. I changed this.
We didn't do introductions.
Oh, yeah, I guess we could have done that, eh? We'll sneak it in after the updates.
All right, I'm one of the guys. Yeah, and here's FedEx did for me. Luckily, everything inside is cool, so I have more of everything. So
Cool.
that's not bad. So life continues because I had run out of pretty much all parts.
That's a good sign, right? Like you sold a lot of stuff at the fest, so.
Exactly so. So now on to invent the next thing. Because, not enough stress yet. Still working. So anyway, that's about it for this week.
And Rick, those look like keyboards.
Yeah, that's both keyboard sets and CoCo IOs. So I was able to come up.
I have one question on the keyboard. I think there were some people were asking about a CoCo 1 replacement keyboard. Does anything happen with that?
Yeah, I would have to have one. I've got the same problem with the Melty keys. I don't have a complete Melty key keyboard. I've got like 4/5 of one, but there's some kind of rubber ball cushion sheet that I don't have, so I can't really tell if I've got it right yet or not. So, that's kind of the limits right now. Is I need to see what I'm reproducing to reproduce it.
I have a couple CoCo ones. I could probably ship you something.
And I'm thinking the CoCo 1 keyboards didn't use screws. They were had melted studs to hold it together.
Yeah, the Melty has that same problem. I've kind of got a fix for that if I just knew what all I needed to have inside.
Now the
of it.
CoCo 1 keyboards, I know the earliest ones had that header connector on it, and then the later ones had the ribbon cable. Were they built differently too? Do you know? Or
Yeah,
I don't have an original one.
yeah, I just have an F-board one here. So
Yeah, I've got an F board upstairs, but I'm kind of. It's not a very good sample set. I've seen this one.
I have a D board and I have my 4K CoCo, and I think the other one's an E board.
So you would have the ones with the header connector then.
Yeah, I know one of them does. Haven't opened it recently, but yeah.
So yeah, the D board might be interesting, and then I've got an F board, so then I'll at least know
if they're the same or if they
what
change
those
something
two
interior
are.
besides the
Exactly.
connector.
Do you need the whole CoCo, or you just need the
No,
keyboard?
I think just the board, just the keyboard part.
Does it
Okay,
need to work?
excellent.
No.
Mine works, but yeah.
No, it just needs to physically be, so I know what I'm trying to.
Okay.
Yeah, sizing and spacing and stuff is what you're trying to figure out.
I
Yeah, we're
probably have a
half a
couple of
millimeter.
melty keyboards. I'll check for you, Rick, and if I have them, I'll send them to you.
Oh, cool! I would definitely like to see one, just so I know what kind of spacer,
Sure.
what the target is here. Because hey,
Yeah. Now there were two melties. There's the one with the rubber stompers in it, like what you were talking about, Rick, and then there's another one that doesn't have the rubber stompers in. And I think the difference is, if I'm right about this, the ones with the rubber stompers are the ones that have the rivets, the melted rivets that are kind of a pain. There's another one that has screws that doesn't use. That's more like the full height like keyboard ones. So if I have one of each, I'll send them. But I literally have a half a dozen in the garage. I'll see what I've got.
what's interesting, the one that I have, the melted rivets thing, has an amp part number. So Tandy didn't make that one. I wonder if when they switched the one made with screws, because Tandy built all theirs, as far as I can tell, with screws. So I wonder if they started making their own keyboards somewhere in the melty keyboard part. That would be interesting to know.
Makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else have any updates or acquisitions, or we can go straight into introducing the panel that I completely forgot to do at the beginning?
I have a little bit of something.
Okay. Well, we'll do the introductions first, then we'll actually do your proper intro,
Okay.
Ron, before
All
we
right.
do your bits here.
All right.
So if nobody else has any other updates and acquisitions, we'll get on to the introductions. So I guess we'll start in the upper left corner, at least what I'm seeing on my screen. I have no idea that's what you guys are seeing on the live stream, but Rick Ulen, who was just speaking about the keyboards. So welcome, Rick. Next to him is Mark Overholzer, fresh off of his holiday, I believe.
Yep, holiday all over the Pacific Northwest.
Cool. Next up is Ron Delvaux, and we'll be doing a segment that I think is the main reason we invited him to join the show, actually, way back when.
Well, thank you.
And then there's me, the loser, up in the corner. We'll skip him. I'll skip a special guest because we'll actually cover him when we get to talking about why he's here. Next up, we have Ken Waters, alias Canadian Retro Things, fresh off of a second long journey on the road.
And now I'm on vacation
Looking more Canadian than usual.
in a log cabin.
Now you're gonna have to switch from the Hawaiian shirts to the lumberjack ones, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's a log cabin in Hawaii.
Yeah, could be. Until the snow piles up outside. Next after that, we got Mark, our host streamer. You still feeling a bit under weather with allergies and stuff, Mark? Or?
Yeah, a bit better than last week, but still there.
Hey,
So
hopefully it gets better.
I may mute for a minute.
That's okay. Next up is Grant, who we always like to hear muted.
Thanks, Curtis.
He's our main head guy
Give him the
that
love.
did CoCo Fest. Was the organizer for you? You were supposed to have some help, but Jim unfortunately couldn't make it. So
Yep.
you were running solo. So are you recovered from that experience yet? And are you going to do it again?
Yep, I'll be doing it again. And yes, I finally have recovered. So, and by the way, it is true. I was asleep during a tornado that went 4 blocks away from my house this week. So that was me.
Really? Okay, let's hear this story. I haven't heard this yet. So explain.
What kind of storm chaser are you, man?
Yeah, I know, right?
You let the storms chase you. What the hell?
No, I went to bed because I usually get up around 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And yeah, that night the tornado came through about 1:30 in the morning and was only 4 blocks away. So I go out to take the dog outside and looked over my neighbor's yard and the big trees down. And I'm like, what in the world's happened there? And then I turned the news on and come to find out, literally a tornado was only 4 blocks away from my house and went through the city.
How did you miss the sirens? I just want to know.
Well, from what it looks like,
you thought it was a train, huh?
The sirens didn't go off because literally the tornado dropped down right in Lenexa. So it was only about 10 blocks away from it dropped down. So by the time they hit the sirens, it was already past us. So they didn't sound them here. So
how big was the tornado, if you don't mind me asking?
it was just a small one, EF1. So just a lot of tree damage is what it did, but substantial.
Okay. Never a dull moment with you.
Yeah, I know, right?
Next up, and you'll be a featured guy on one of our news segments here, is Mr. David Ladd, Lord of the Floppy.
I think David had to step away for a minute. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I can see he's muted now. So, and next up, the Thunder from Down Under, the guy who literally has a nickname, as we discussed earlier.
G'day,
Nick
everyone.
Marentes.
Hi, everyone.
How's development on your new game, Jumping Joey, going?
Coming along. Haven't done too much the last few days, having a bit of a break, but yeah, it's coming along.
Do you get tornadoes down there?
We don't call them tornadoes. We get cyclones and hurricanes.
Was a cyclone a hurricane or a tornado? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, cyclones are hurricane. You're right. But tornadoes, very rarely. Yeah.
Okay. Next up after that is Mr. James Diffendaffer. How are you doing, James? You haven't been on in a while.
Neighbors. Oh, yeah, I've been kind of slacking.
Well, I know sometimes you have like internet connection problems too, so I didn't know if that was part of it.
More or less, I was just avoiding you guys, you know.
Oh, okay. So you had legitimate reasons not to be on. That's good.
It's our truthful hour.
Yeah, there we go.
Tell us how you really feel, James.
Yeah, really.
You all suck.
No, I was just avoiding the usual. It's gonna be CoCo Fest. Oh, it's CoCo Fest. Oh, it was CoCo Fest. That takes up like 4 weeks. So, you know.
Well, you see, you'd solve that if you just come down.
Yeah. I hear you.
Someday I think I'm going to drive and I'm going to pick up James and drag him along over to.
That sounds like a great idea, Mark. I'm going to hold you to that.
Remember, folks, only 11 months to go.
There you go.
Yeah, plan now. Okay, I think we've covered everybody on. We're hoping that Simon Jonas will be able to pop in a little bit here when we get to Paul Shoemaker, our guest segment, a little bit later on here. So crossing my fingers that he'll be able to come in for that. He's the mystery guy we skipped over earlier, but we'll get into him when we get into the game on challenge stuff. So Mark, if you can play the little intro for Ron, we'll get an update from Ron.
Turn up your sound. Oh, darn. Okay, share the screen.
Okay, go ahead.
I was all ready to. Okay. Let's see if it's up.
I see a Model 100 of some sort. Actually, that's not a Model 100.
This is the dev term. What do you think of this, guys? I only gave it on here because it could be CoCo related in that it's Linux based, and it could run maybe CoCo Pi on it.
Oh, so that's like a modern machine made to look like. Taylor and Amy, didn't they cover that on their show?
They might have.
Yeah. What's her name and Amy or whatever? Yeah, they covered
Taylor
it.
and Amy. Yeah.
Taylor and Amy.
It has a little printer on it that does
thermal
printing. Yeah, thermal printing. Yep. And look at the size of the pencil. It's small.
I could see one thing that bugs me about it already now that I'm seeing it up and close, and that's a space bar. I don't know if I can handle a space bar that small.
Yeah.
The whole
anyway.
Yeah, it's an MC10-ish sized keyboard. So yeah. I think I'd pass.
Yeah. The Model 100 still has one of the greatest keyboards ever made.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Here it is here. And it's, it's, well, they actually have it in the picture here, which I didn't even realize until after I posted it. This is mine.
The big thing is a Model 100.
Yeah, it's huge. So then I took a high color picture of a Dodge Challenger, which I thought came out really nice. Here's the original picture. And then I was online yesterday. Enjoyed going online and playing with my color computer. Now, in order to go online, I have to have that multi-pack hooked up with the RS-232. that goes out to a laptop I have with WinXP on it, because the program I have that does the translation for the COM ports has to be on that machine because it doesn't work on 11 or 10.
Now, is that running NetMate, Roger Taylor's NetMate, or is
Yes,
that
it is, as a matter of fact,
Twilight
yeah.
Terminal? Okay,
You can see it here. NetMate.
there.
Yeah, works great. Love it. Contact him if you want a copy of it. It works great. And I saw a bunch of stuff on what's it called? Facebook's page for products that you can buy. And,
Marketplace?
Yeah, Marketplace. And this is TRP 100. It's for sale for $120. Then there's a is it $300?
The PC2 is the one I almost got back in the day.
Yeah.
That was one I was lusting after.
Now, if you buy this one, you could go ahead and get this. This has everything with it. The,
cassette, printer, the whole thing.
But I don't know if it would work with it because this is a PC what? It's not the PC2.
Yeah, I think the PC2 is required for that particular one. The connector was different or something. I can't remember.
Now you see it has trouble here. So
Yeah, the LCD is a bit leaky there.
Yeah.
Grant must have been at it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Here's an old CCR 81, $30. That's reasonable. And then there's a CoCo 2 for $475.
Oh, that's a steal.
Yeah.
And I mean that literally.
Really?
Stealing your money, maybe.
Joysticks, $55.
Wow.
New in box with a little water damage on the box.
Now, is this just to cover the gas prices for shipping costs?
Yeah, I wonder. I just wonder, really. Then I ran across this in a rainbow, a real-time clock.
Yep, I remember this one.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, why can't we reproduce that? Everybody complains no real-time clock. You need to have one if you did that. And then someone, Ian Maverick, said, I would make one. And I thought that was cool. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I contacted Mr. Weasler to see if maybe he has one because he has, I think God has more, but he has quite a bit.
How is he doing actually? Because we haven't heard from him in a while, so I didn't want to press him.
He moved. He says he doesn't have inventory. He doesn't have all of his stuff. He just moved it, and it's not able to be gone through yet.
Oh, okay.
So it'll probably be 2 to 3 years. He has as much stuff.
that's like waiting for David Ladd to finish cleaning his room there. So
really, yeah. So
Hey.
I also did Top Gun. If you guys would like, you can go to my page here and download it. This particular one was done by who is it? I can't. My mind is blank.
Ron, I want to mention
Paul Fiscarelli.
Okay.
He did this picture with a different algorithm to make the picture, and then he put the music for Top Gun on it. So when you show the picture, the song plays.
Wait, which one? The main Top Gun?
Yeah.
The instrumental theme or? The instrumental theme.
Yeah. Best I can do. Sorry, guys.
Highway to the Danger Zone.
Yeah.
It was a great Steve Stevens solo on that one. Sorry, guitar
That's about
nerd
it,
stuff.
guys. That's what's happening at Ron's Garage.
I wanted to mention, we got a mention from Taylor and Amy Show in the chat here saying, yes, they did do a dev term build. So they actually, I did remember that, right, that they actually did show them setting one up.
I just wonder if anyone's tried to put Cocoa Pie on it. Now, really, the screen is so small, and the Cocoa Pie screen is going to be a third of the screen, right? And you're going to have to probably have your nose real close to the keyboard.
But you could do it on a in-flight or something if you wanted to, and on airplane.
I think you just have to make a special dev build of it that includes really thick bifocals, and that'll solve it.
There you go.
Coke bottle glasses.
Mark's hood.
You look like Bubbles from the Trailer Park Boys is what you'll end up looking like.
So
Well, thanks, Ron. Actually,
guys.
I'll have to try that because I haven't actually heard the CoCo play that particular song. So that's a new one on me. So I'm gonna
Yeah, it's I think it's a MIDI thing or something. I don't know. And actually, I tried it on VCC and it was a little slow. I think it was VCC played it good. And the real CoCo 3 did well, but there was something I tried that played it slow and it was choppy. I can't remember which.
Yeah, maybe X-Roar or MAME or something. I know X-Roar on my Mac has got, and I think Paul hit this too, where it's got some issues with sound.
Okay, maybe it was that.
Yeah, it can be a little skippy and poppy sometimes with the,
especially when you change
latest
Windows, then
version.
it really gets bad.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ron.
Sure.
And I think with no further ado, Ken, if you want to take it away, and Mark, I guess we'll play the little results video first, but we'll get on to the Game On Challenge.
All right, getting here.
I always do this when he's eating, just on purpose. But
I thought he was sleeping.
That'll come later. All right, here we go.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's CoCoTALK Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Trap Fall. We had a total of 15 players. We had Damon Beals, who played but didn't submit a score. Mr. Dave 6309 with 1962. AJ 1966. David Ladd 1970. 8 Bits in the Basement.
Hey, am I on?
5490. Tasman.
Really, Stevie?
5734. Timbo Tech.
Besties, 1, 2.
5786. Rich N. 5808. Grant B. 5856. Paul Shoemaker. 5918. Canadian Retro Things. 8708. Jim Rye. 9608. Sloopy Malibu, 9678. L. Curtis Boyle, 27,314.
Oh, that's a cheater.
And the number one score this week was Buck Owens with 49,802. Thanks everybody that played this week, and we will see you next week.
CoCoTALK salutes Buck Owens.
Curtis, when are you gonna play a game for real and not cheat it?
I don't get first most of the time anymore, so I'm not cheating. Plus, I mean, both my game and Buck recorded live streams of them too, so you can actually check it out for real.
Don't you start that game with 2,000 points?
You do.
Yep. Okay. And every time you run over a barrel, you lose points. So,
yeah. So some people didn't find any treasures and lost a few points.
I saw that.
But just a reminder to, I think there were some other people in the chat that did play the game but didn't post scores. It's about having fun. It doesn't matter what your score is, just post something. So, yeah. And as you could see, Curtis and Buck really kicked everybody else's butts. So,
this never was an easy game, but yeah, I played it a fair bit when I was young. So
it's not. It's only about having fun until you win, and then it's about bragging rights.
Okay, there's a bit of truth to that, but anyway,
if you lose every week, like most of us, it's about having fun. Then you got the braggers. Okay, so I found one review for this game. And it was in November of 83's Hot CoCo. And he thought the graphics were good, but not the best. The sound was average, and it was the type of game that after half an hour of playing got extremely monotonous and boring, which I think a lot of people actually found playing this game because it's one of those pixel perfect jumping games that gets really frustrating after a while.
It took me 10 minutes to get to that point.
Like the game, once you get used to the timings and things like that, then the game gets a bit more exciting because then you're just, you're making stupid mistakes and you can get further. Like I remember back in the day, there was a few of us in our local club here that actually could probably get like halfway through the whole thing.
And Buck Owens had found a high score list of this. I wasn't able to find which issue this came from, but as you can see, there was one for 114,322, and Buck was pointing out that on the Atari version, 114,000 is the highest possible score. So there must be something in the CoCo version that you can get a few extra points.
Yeah, I've never won the game outright. I got every treasure, so I have no idea what the score range should be.
I gotta say, I'm a little surprised at how negative that review was, because I thought Trapfall was like an exact copy of Pitfall, and Pitfall sold like a gazillion copies.
Yeah.
I think the issue there is Rainbow had a lot of reviewers where the people reviewing games weren't really game players. Like there's quite a few times that they thought Pac-Man was an original concept.
Oh, okay.
Actually, though, also in the review, that something that the person complained about was that for the price that you paid for the game, which was a full price, like top of the line price game, you just got the single sheet of paper in it for the instructions, whereas most other games at that price level had a nice instruction book in them. So,
okay.
He thought that was a bit of a ripoff too.
Yeah. And as 60 mentioned in the chat, this was resold by Microdeal for the Dragon as Cuthbert in the Jungle.
So for tips and tricks on this game, I heard a lot of talk about, like, I'm not a big Pitfall player on any platform, but I heard a lot of people talking about the running to the left at the beginning is supposed to be easier than running to the right. Does anybody have?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say easier.
The only thing that I found that was easier about it was that when you died, you reformed on the other end of the screen, so you can
get past the screen if you're getting stuck. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. You can take shortcuts through the underground part, where you can skip screens. I think it's 3 screens at a time or something if you want to not go through everything. Problem is the pixel perfect jumping is literally pixel perfect jumping the Scorpion. So I usually die there all the time. So I just go on the top because it's easier to jump over a snake or a fire or whatever. So,
and plus, you really got to know the levels. So you don't want to miss a treasure by skipping over it.
Well, sometimes it's still easier to skip, go, and then go left, like you were saying. Go get the treasure you would have missed, and then come back.
But you got to know the treasure's there. So you
got to pretty well memorize the order. It never changes. Yeah. It's a fixed map you're going through, just like the original Pitfall.
Yeah.
And are the screens like in order? So if I have no idea how many different screens there are, maybe say there's 100. Are they in order? And if
255.
255 screens, that makes sense.
It has an algorithm that just goes 0 to 255.
So
they are in order. So
if you get all the way to the end, it loops back around again, or
it does if you go through it and you miss some treasures. But I think the game ends if you get all the treasures. Though like I said, I've never done it, so I'm not sure. Live in the cabin life. I see bugs flying by.
Yep, mosquitoes. There's lots of them here right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. Some tips and tricks. I don't know. Well, we're covering it in the Game On news here. AJ and Tim Linder actually did a video on it. That's where their scores got submitted. So it was fun. I made a snarky comment about my favorite parts is one of AJ's things. Like, I wasn't paying attention. You're playing, Tim. I was too busy drinking. And then just Tim's facial expressions every time he died a stupid death, which was literally about every 10 to 15 seconds, was hilarious. But there's a few little tricks. Like when you're jumping the alligators, a lot of people, they're just, doing it for the first time. They'll try to, jump when the mouth's closed, step forward to get on the head, wait, jump and do that. The thing is, if you land on the head of the alligator, you don't have to wait for anything. You just hold down the jump button and then just move the joystick to the right and you'll just leap completely across every time. You'll get through every time, so you don't have to time anything except that first jump.
I tried that a few times. I always ended up on the last one in the drink.
If you're too far to the right, you do move about a pixel more each time. So if you're too far right on the head, then that will happen. But if you on the center or the left side of the head, you'll get right through.
Okay.
Tim and AJ found the bug on the original version of Triple. I think they fixed it in 1.1, but it's a bug I mentioned, I think, last week too, that I remembered, where if you're jumping off the vine and then you immediately hold down the joystick button to do a jump, you'll actually sink about 4 or 5 pixels on the screen, and then you can never jump over anything ever again until you die.
And also in the version 1, Buck also found that one of the shortcuts had a dead end in it that wasn't supposed to be there. So,
okay.
So one of the underground shortcuts.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what other. Another one I do is a bit of a tip when you're going across the expanding water pits. I usually, unless I've got a vine that's going to get in my way or something like that, I will actually sit there and hold the jump button, because then on the last part, if the pit comes a little bit too quick, if you're just running, it'll kill you. But if you jump, you'll be up in the air when it comes up to that point, and you'll get over it, so you get a better chance of getting past it. So that's another little tip. There's also cheat pokes in Rainbow. I should mention that. If you want a bunch of extra men.
Aha! Now the truth comes out.
I didn't do that.
We watched him live on the air. He really did play the game properly.
Yeah, so did Buck on his score, and he doubled me. So
other than that weird white border, we were kind of
that was a VCC weirdness.
Maybe Curtis was photoshopping live as he played.
I didn't do it as bad as Sloopy did.
Oh yeah, I got to mention that Sloopy actually had photoshopped an 8 million point game in the results there. I didn't include it in the final tally, though.
But now that we know that the maximum score is only 114,000, we can definitely call foul on that one.
And one of the most interesting reviews that I saw on this in the Game On Challenge, just let me find it here, was 8-Bits in the Basement. He wrote, I read a review of Pitfall, and it said that this game was refreshing in that it was non-violent. No shooting or kicking or punching, just exploring and finding hidden treasure. All I have to say is that my CoCo almost went through the window more than once while I was working on my high score. This game is so damn frustrating. I think that sums up this game pretty well. It's the most violent, non-violent game there is.
Yeah, it's a hard one. And this is back from the early to mid 80s when everybody was writing games with the arcade mentality, which basically kill the player as quick as possible so you make more money, which of course you don't need to worry about on a home console, but everybody copied those. So it's pixel perfect jumps, lots of ways to die, stupidly. That's the era. There's a lot of games like that.
Yeah. The pixel perfect jumping of the 80s.
See, I think that's one of the reasons Cut for the Jungle was actually popular, because in the UK, the games like Manic Miner and Jets Willy were even worse than the ones we're used to up here in North America. So that was like right up their alley type thing. I'm sure the best scores probably came from there.
And as you can see here now, during the game on Thursday night play, we had up to 4 players at once played this game. A few of us got pretty bored of it pretty quickly and switched over to some other games. But otherwise, the stream was a lot of fun to be there, especially listening to some Canadian there doing a lot of cursing and swearing. Not sure which one that was. I think it was me.
Could have been either. And if you want more like that, you can watch the sibling rivalry episode, which we'll be covering in the Game On News, because there was a lot of that there too.
But we went on for almost 2.5 hours. So, although, like I said, a few of us just went on and played different CoCo games, which is perfectly acceptable during the live Game On Challenge.
Including a special one, which is why our guest is here today.
Exactly. I was just leading into one of the games that we played was next week's Game On Challenge. I will show a screenshot of the game. Unless you've tried this in the last few days, you're probably not going to recognize this one. But it is Ghost Rush by Paul Shoemaker, who is our guest here right now. And Curtis, did you want to take away talking to Paul about this game?
No, I was going to let you do
playing. I'm going to talk about it. Okay.
That doesn't matter.
I can talk about
it. Yeah, there we go.
How about Paul talks about it?
Solves the issue right there. So, Paul, I guess the first thing is this is actually a CoCo port of a fairly popular game on both mobile phones and online in browsers. Do you know any of the history of the original game? Like I was trying to find out the original author's name. I couldn't even find that.
No clue. And I don't know how popular it is either. It just is a game that I happen to have played about 2 weeks ago. I thought it was actually for work. We had a kind of a virtual fair thing at work.
I want your job if you get to play games at work.
Well, this was unusual. And there was a little virtual arcade. And in the virtual arcade was a bunch of, non-arcadey games. Like they didn't have Pac-Man and Galaga and all that good stuff. They had all of these little weird games that I'd never seen before. And so the only one that was arcadey was called Pack Rush. And so I played it, and with the folks that I work with, we all sort of, tried to beat each other's high score. And we played it for a little while, and it was fun. And I thought, well, that's cool. And in the Pack Rush game, you control a Pac-Man who goes around in a circular path and attempts to eat a randomly placed dot from time to time while avoiding these spike traps or spike strips that fall from the top. And since it's kind of designed for a phone screen, it's a tall and skinny play area. And so as far as I know, and as far as I ever got on the game, at least, it only ever drops spikes from the top. So I saw that game and I thought, well, the gameplay is pretty fundamental. I thought I can write that. That would be a good, fun project to go do. So then I thought, well, I'm going to change it a little bit. And I switched up the avatar from Pac-Man to the Ghost to make it different, but also, and I actually started it with a Pac-Man, but I found it's really hard to make a Pac-Man that is eating in a diagonal way that looks good.
Especially in the lower res.
On the lower resolution, it didn't look like anything. So I switched over to a Ghost because the Ghost has the benefit of always being the same shape. Yes, I could have had the eyes of the Ghost, move around and follow the different points, and I didn't do that. In switching to the Ghost as the hero of my version of the game, then naturally Pac-Man had to become an enemy. And so, indeed, as you play the game, the further you get into the game, in addition to the spike strip that falls from the top, after a while, a Pac-Man will emerge from the side. There's actually a total of 3 different enemies. And the gameplay on mine is exactly the same as it was in the original Pack Rush game. Your Ghost moves in a circular path, either clockwise or counterclockwise. The only control that you have is the joystick button. You click the joystick button anytime you want your Ghost to move the other way.
Yeah, because you can never stop moving. You're continuous motion. So.
Always in continuous motion. He's either.
Also, I want to put in Buck Owens actually just did a comment because he played it a bit on the last couple of days too, and he said I thought those were IC dip chips, not.
Somebody said teeth, and I looked at them. I was like, yeah, they do sort of look like like teeth that are falling as well, but they're intended to be spike strips. So for the record, it's like a piece of earth with spikes on it that are falling down. So the game is written in assembly language. It actually came together really quickly. I literally started writing it 2 weeks ago. And I incorporated a random number generator subroutine that Steve Bjork had kindly shared in the past, and a 4-voice music subroutine that Rick Adams had shared in the past, but all the rest of the code's mine. It uses the 128 by 96 P mode 1 screen, and maybe maybe I can share the game itself as I'm talking about it here. Would that work, or would you prefer?
Yeah, Mark, if you want to let him share, if you're not already.
He should be ready to share.
Okay.
All right, let's see if this works. Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got the weird white border on VCC that I had too.
Yeah, it's because I'm photoshopping as I go, just like you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's see. It's using 128 by 96 P mode 1. I like this mode, that particular mode, because the pixels are nice and square, and then the screen size, it only requires about 3K, so it leaves plenty of memory left over for the rest of the code and anything else. And in fact, that's the same resolution that the Poker Squares game that I've written in the past uses as well.
And some other older CoCo games, like say Firecopter or something like that, were also in this mode too. So.
Yeah, it's a neat mode. Now it's got its drawbacks. So the resolution is pretty coarse, but it's a pretty neat mode to use. The code itself is about 12K long. It could probably be smaller, but every graphics subroutine that I wrote is tailored to the sprite that it's used for. So it means I have redundant code, but I think ideally it should all be faster. I'm not in the game. I'm not double buffering. In fact, I'm using VSync a lot in the game, and I tried to update the screen during the vertical blanking period, which allows the animation to be pretty smooth, and it doesn't flicker too much that way. Let's see. All the sprites are compiled sprites, and since most of the animation is done in kind of single pixel increments, that means I've got multiple versions of each of the ghosts for sure, and of many of the graphics that I had to compile in just like 1 pixel offsets from one another. So it's a little tedious to do compiled sprites, but the end result is totally worth it.
Speed gain is worth it.
Fly around the screen, and you don't have to worry about sprite masking and all the rest of that stuff that you might have to do. Now, you still got to get and put the background behind the sprite, but which is not that big of a deal. And I use unrolled loops for that. Not unrolled stack blasting loops, but unrolled loops all the same, and that helps things go fast. Let's see. The tune that's in the game is actually a little short excerpt from the Tetris stand-up arcade game, like the arcade version of Tetris. Because I knew I wanted a traditional 8-bit sounding tune, and I considered the Pac-Man theme for a minute, and then I thought, nah, that's a little obvious. So
plus Namco might sue, so that'd be another.
You never know, right? And so I actually was searching around, kind of listening to MIDI files of different like 8-bit tunes, and I found this site out there that had not a lot, but a pretty decent collection of arcade tunes that had been converted into MIDI. And this was this one from Tetris called like Kalinka, I think the name of the song was. It's a big long song, and I just listened to it until I've heard little 2 or 3 second sections of it that I thought sounded like what I was looking for, and I just sort of took out those sections and coded them into a music set of data statements that works with Rick's subroutine, and that's where I have the music from. Let's see.
One bit of trivia, if I remember correctly, Rick's music routine is actually one based on Dale Lear, who was his coworker at the time. The guy who did color baseball, etc. So it's actually kind of a joint effort for them, and I'm glad you're using it as well. Yeah,
it works. I couldn't have figured out how to do it myself, and so I've used it a couple of times in a couple of different games. It's very convenient to have. I'm so happy that he shared it. So the game runs on a CoCo 1 or 2 with at least 32K. It works on a 32K machine, or of course also a CoCo 3. And in fact, on a CoCo 3, like running in the emulator right here, you can hit P to switch through different palette sets. Now let me go back to the beginning. The original palette set assumes you're running a CoCo 3 with an RGA monitor. The next one is if you were running a CoCo 3 on a composite monitor. And then all the other ones are just, they've got RGB in mind, so of course they'll work on a composite monitor, but I have no idea what the colors will look like. And so there's like the blue and red one was sort of like the P mode 4 kind of artifacty color ones, and then there's a grayscale one here. There's a green screen one kind of, and then this one is supposed to look like you're running it on an amber screen. I just thought I'd add some different palette choices, since many times as those of us play CoCo 2 games on a CoCo 3, especially in the P mode 1 color sets, we always like to tweak the colors ourselves on the CoCo 3, and so I thought I'd do that for you and give folks some different options to choose from. So let's see. I initially released this a couple of days ago, and it ended up having some bugs in the Ken Kalish trap fall tradition. So in troubleshooting those, I got a lot of help. So I talked to Nick, who helped me understand better how to manage the DAC. And as you switch from sound or music to polling for joystick positions, kind of how to deal with that. He also very helpfully explained how I had hopelessly overcomplicated just pulling for the joystick button. You don't have to do all of the fancy stuff that you have to do with trying to find the joystick stick position for pulling a joystick button. It is extremely straightforward, and I had woefully overcomplicated it. So with his guidance, I was able to make that part of the code both smaller and faster. And I think the audio quality improved as a result too, because I wasn't busy hammering on registers that I didn't need to be hammering on. And I also found one single line of code that was completely unneeded. This was, of course, after I had released it, that I forgot to delete at some point as I was iterating through the different versions. That was causing the stack to go way out of control. And eventually it would just clobber part of the actual program. And in retrospect, this was a bug that Robert Allen and Buck Owens both reported that I was like, it's only happening on the emulator. It must be a problem with the emulator. And then I had my granddaughter here sitting next to me playing the game on my CoCo 3, and the same damn thing happened on the CoCo 3. And so I thought, it's my code. It's not the emulator. So then I began this kind of wonderful process of using the MAME debugger and watching the memory change. And I actually spotted the stack issue pretty quickly. And then I just started pouring through my code and finally found a rogue like polls D command in there. And I was like, hey, why are you there? And as soon as I deleted that and recompiled it, it suddenly got a lot better. And I guess lastly, this morning, second to lastly, I don't know if Simon's here, but lastly for me, this morning I did manage to modify the code so that it now works on a Dragon 32 and a Dragon 64 and the Tano Dragon and maybe that funky Dragon 200 Spain one or whatever it's called. It worked on all of those, at least in Extra it did. And I found
Paris Rat's going to be working on making actual disk images, etc.
Yes. I have a binary that I know works, but I couldn't figure out how to put it on a disk image that works on a Dragon at least. And I found I had to remove a line of code that stops the motor on a CoCo. It's like an FF40 store A into an FF40.
To shut the disk drive motor off.
And initially, when I was trying to get this to work on a Dragon, it would just crash immediately, and it was because of that. And that was like the second line of code on my code. It was because of that statement. Once I took that out, it actually came up. And so I thought, I'm really close. And then I just had to remove a couple of ROM calls that were in Rick's music routine. Yeah. And change a couple of other things, and it worked. So it was like 30 minutes of effort this morning. Once I had the breakthrough of it's this command that's messing everything up. 30 minutes later, I had a working version on Dragon as well. And then finally, Simon is working on a port for the MC10, which is awesome. And I'll let him talk about that at some point. But it came together pretty quickly, and I was happy with the results.
Now, is there a maximum score? Or is this an endless game if you get good enough to last forever?
The score will go up to it's 99,009.
So 99.99 basically.
99.99, and then it'll roll over. As you play the game and you get further into it, of course, this center here, I don't know if I'm sharing the audio on the game.
Yeah.
You guys hearing the audio?
We're not hearing the audio, but we can see it.
Okay. As you progress through the game, there's an indication that the level has changed because in the middle here where there's this little yellow diamond, it'll change to a different fruit. And each time you advance to the next level, it plays a little tune, and the game gets a little bit harder up to a point. I think the third level, you start to see the third enemy, if you will, or I guess it's really the fourth level if you don't count the first one. And then at that point, it doesn't get any harder. And frankly, I think there's fruit graphics for the center that no one will ever see, because at some point you just get cornered.
That sounds like a challenge to Buck Owens.
I was just going to say that myself.
Yeah, and the score will roll over. It'll give you no indication that you rolled the score. It'll just roll over. But I would be shocked and amazed if anybody gets 2,000 points, let alone 9,000 points.
Got a thank you in the chat here from Grant. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name right. We met him at the fest. Grant Bloto. He said, "Ghost Rush, super fun. Thanks so much for releasing this."
Oh, I'm pleased to hear it. Yeah, pleased to hear it. It was fun to develop, and it was, as I say, it was a simple enough game conceptually that I felt like it was in my wheelhouse to be able to do it. And I got a lot of help from a lot of people, either through code or doing some play testing, or helping me understand how to do things right. It made a lot of fun.
You got some high praise from Buck Owens. Says he's just played Pack Rush, the game it's inspired by, and he said Ghost Rush is better.
Excellent. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if Pack Rush ever does anything except drop those spike strips from the top.
And there's so many versions of Pack Rush. Like when I was trying to research it for the webpage, which I'll show in a bit here. Like the game originally, as far as I can tell, it came out in 2019, the first version, and there's versions for mobile phones. There's also versions for web browsers. There's multiple versions of each by different authors who never named themselves. So I'm not even sure what the original one was, but yeah, I think it looks like it's just, the one spike belty type thing comes down or whatever.
I thought with the layout of a CoCo screen, you've got some space on the sides. Why not use those? And then, for me, it was just a natural progression. Okay, I'm changing to the Ghost. I want the Pac-Man to be an enemy. Then Pac-Man comes from the side. So it just all worked out.
Yeah, Buck says, the pack dudes from the sides really adds to the game. I agree.
Yeah, it means you have to manage in your brain things coming from
two different directions.
Two different directions, and then eventually
and still trying to get your dot too while you're at it. So
trying to get the dot. Yeah, you sort of have to get used to, and you have to get comfortable with close calls and near misses, and the collision detection is a little bit forgiving. So
yeah, you can overlap an edge a little bit.
You can overlap a little bit, and part of that is because my collision detection is not very good, and part of it is because I did that on purpose, so that it wouldn't.
I would go with the latter. It sounds better.
Yeah, so that people wouldn't, want to throw their CoCo through the window like with the aforementioned trap fall.
Well, one thing I mentioned when I was talking to some people about it is that it's very easy to learn because you only have one control. You just change direction. Very hard to master. It kind of reminded me of Flappy Bird, except it's way less frustrating. Flappy Bird's even more frustrating than Trap Fall.
Yeah, I can make it 4 seconds into Flappy Bird before I run into something. I've never been able to figure that one out either.
So yeah, I like the fact you put in the alternate palettes there. And I'd asked you actually before we were setting this up that had you considered putting in the alternate palette for the CoCo 1 and 2, but you said you tried it with the white, cyan, orange, magenta. It just looked terrible. So
it just didn't look. I didn't see any reason to put that in, and so I did. But I had it in there, and I took it out. And I had some other features in there that I've taken out as well because I didn't think they added to the experience or they in some way detracted from it. So
now one question. This is just me adding feature creep because that's what I do. Have you considered, like for a CoCo VGA where you can change the palettes? Have you considered doing the same palette changes? For a person that has a CoCo VGA on a CoCo 1 or 2, or a Dragon for that matter.
If I follow the same suit that I do with poker squares, which is to make the game once and then make it 15 more times with different
Milk
iterations
it for all it's worth.
Absolutely. Then if I follow that, I'll probably do a 16 color version next for CoCo VGA and for the CoCo 3. But I thought I'd start with this one this time.
Okay, cool. I'll get it to Simon's version because he's actually got a little video up that shows like the intro screens animated and stuff that he just posted on Facebook this morning. So
it's a shame he's not here because he and I have been since yesterday, literally yesterday afternoon or evening, he decided he really wanted to do this, and so I shared the source code with him, and 5 minutes later he had the beginning of the game up, and it's not a trivial conversion, because there is, I'm using every register that I can get my hands on in 6809. And of course, there's just what?
6003 has a few less.
Yes, it has a few less. And so he's having to gronk his way through doing stuff in a much different way than the way I did it. And of course, he's very capable.
See, I've done the opposite. Like I've been converting like 6502 code for like Petsky and stuff, where they only had a couple 8-bit registers and that's it. And then you go to 609, you're just looking at the way they did things and going, oh God, like I'm going to rewrite this whole thing.
Well, I'm sure he's doing that with looking at my code too, going, what was this? But that's actually the upside of having him convert it over to run on an MC10 is then he's showing me what he's doing and he explained to me why he did it that way, and I'm learning all kinds of neat stuff. So
do you have an inkling of doing an MC10 game yourself then, or at some point in the future? Do you have an MC10 or just an emulator, I guess?
I do. Yeah, I actually have a couple of MC10s, including one that I modded with Ed's composite out mod. And I mean, they work great. I've got the SD add-on for it and the whole bit. Yes, I had considered, and actually I'd considered doing poker squares, of course, for the MC10. I've never gotten around to that. And I got stuck trying to, honestly, like with the fundamentals of, I prefer to do the development in Windows and test it out on emulators and, LW tools and all that stuff. And setting up a similar Windows-based environment for the MC10, I hadn't figured out exactly how to set that up. Now, clearly Simon has, because he's got it's in his video, and so I'll have him help me get it set up. And then I would like to get comfortable at least with being able to code assembly for an MC10, because I think it's a neat little machine.
Okay. And then in poker squares, like I know that is something you originally planned to release in a Dragon version a while ago, and we're going to get, Paris can try to help with that. So as you said you're considering backporting that to the MC10 as well. Do you think you have enough memory? I'm trying to remember what the memory requirements were in poker squares.
Well,
obviously if you have an MCX32, like one of the more modern RAM cards, but
yeah,
work with the old
probably
20K,
would.
I'm wondering.
Probably would require that. I'm not sure that it would run in 20K. It's there's a lot going on with poker squares with the graphics and everything. It requires a fair amount of additional memory.
No, it's a very well done game. And the fact you did it in 2 weeks is darn impressive.
It came together quickly, and released with only 4 bugs so far, knock on wood.
I wish I could do that good. So, I mean, considering you just literally released a couple of days ago, I was just going to ask the panel, like a couple of us played it on the live stream because it literally got released just like during the show on Thursday. I was wondering, did anybody else in the panel get a chance to try it? I know, Ken, you did.
Yes, and it is far too addicting. I should also add for the Game On Challenge, you can get the game in the general game post channel on Discord, and I pinned the latest version in that channel. So anybody that wants to pick that up, it's pinned in that channel.
I also put it on my website too, temporarily until it's on the archive. It hasn't been approved yet. Last time I checked, I'll change the link there, but I've got the latest bug fix version on my website to download too, if people aren't on our Discord or aren't on Facebook, etc.
And that reminds me, I need to send a new version.
Another new one?
Another new one to no, the one you guys have is good, but the one that I sent for the archive it's got a problem. No one noticed, but I hope no one noticed, but I actually released 3 versions. There was one in the middle that I thought was good, and like 15 minutes later, I realized it was not good, and I went and deleted everything. So that happened to be the one I sent to the archive too. So I need to send him a 3rd one and apologize.
I've done that to him too. He's used to it. Don't worry about it.
Good.
Couple of questions here and comments. I guess one is that Facebook was giving some problems with getting usernames. It looks like it's fixed. Dave and Sharon Berry, I tried it. It's great. Buck Owens, this is a question I had too. I think I mentioned to you before too, is why no keyboard control to save our CoCos from abuse?
I could. And actually, I think...
I know it's easier to work with the PIA and the sound because you don't have the overlap that you would normally. That Nick probably explained to you too.
Right. But adding this to be able to catch the space bar at the same time as pulling for the buttons, actually, if I remember right, looking at the keyboard matrix, actually would not be that difficult. I think they're all looking at bit 0 of FF whatever. So it when I looked at it just this morning, I thought, oh, shoot, that'd have been pretty easy to do. So I might do it.
Well,
of course,
the reason I
MC10
mentioned it is
version
that
will
I know,
be
like
spacebar.
8 Bits in the Basement, when he first got his CoCo, he didn't have any joysticks. He just got the CoCo 16K. So he was asking me, like, what keyboard games can I play? Because most don't. So I said, well, you can play Invader's Revenge and Phantom Slayer and a few others that would run in 16K. So I thought that was, for people that are getting them new off eBay, sometimes the joysticks are busted or not even there. And then at least
I get that.
There's no reason the game can run. It requires a joystick.
No reason it should require a joystick. I just did it that way, right? I figure anybody who's got the hardware probably has a joystick. At least that was my thinking, or eventually is going to get a joystick. And anybody who plays it on an emulator isn't going to need a joystick anyways.
Right. Yeah, true.
You could get both of them to work.
Yeah, that's what he was just saying. It
Keyboard
looks
and
like it's pretty
joystick.
easy.
Yeah. I was looking at my handy dandy keyboard matrix sheet, and I was like, oh, they're all on the same column there, and just like you were explaining to me the other day, Nick. So it should be pretty easy to do.
That'll expand
which would mean
your
a
market,
fourth
too.
version of the disc that I'll send out to everybody. So
That's a new feature, though. That's not a bug fix. I'd call that 1.1.
That's right. That's right.
So go ahead.
For what it's worth, Paul, the VMC10 emulator has one of the best built-in debuggers there is. You'll be spoiled if you get it set up and going right.
Excellent.
Cool. I did not know that. So, Ken, any further things you want to say about it as the Game On Challenge?
Nope. Just
There's no levels to worry about this time. So if there's
just have fun. It's one button. After a little bit of a frustrating game that we had last week, this is a nice, relaxing game.
It is intended to be a game that anybody can pick up, but it has its moments.
It has its moments, but especially when you got a good high score and you do something stupid like hit the button twice rather than once and turn yourself back into the.
Yep. Yep. I'll give just one tip. It's a little counterintuitive. I have found it's better to hang around in the top of the circle. It's very tempting to hang around in the bottom right, especially for the first little bit. It's easy to get trapped that way. So if you can get used to hanging around the top, you might find you get a little bit further into it for sure.
Now, Paul, will you I'll be first of all participating in the Game On Challenge yourself this week to submit a score? And if you are you planning on maybe, if you have time, to pop by on the Thursday evening live challenge?
I will. Yes, if I can, I'll be there on the Thursday Game On Challenge, and I would like to participate. In fact, I'll tell you guys the best score I've gotten so far is 1,280.
So, God, you're way above me.
Beat that.
Yeah, but we need photographic proof.
Oh, I've got it. I've been taking screenshots as I've been going along, I'm saving this.
He's got to have something to compete with Buck here. He's going to have it mastered in 2 days.
Yeah, what I'm afraid is Buck's going to come back with like a 6,000 score, and the guy played it for like 45 minutes straight.
Yeah,
that'll be.
By the way,
Wednesday.
Sloopy in the chat actually made a comment too, which I think is steered at Ken. He said, "About time those Game On morons picked a good game," because I know he was not a fan of Trap Ball. So,
well, we'll see. We'll see how this one fares. But
we had a lot of fun. Those of us that tried it on Thursday night did have a lot of fun playing it. So,
I jokingly said that in making this game, I wanted to make a game specifically that y'all would play on the Game On section. So, mission accomplished.
Yeah, and rather quickly, you did the game in 2 weeks, and it's right up on the third week. It's the Game On Challenge.
All part of the plan.
It's all downhill from here now.
This is a complete bug finding week for us. We'll find if there's anything wrong in it, we'll find it.
For sure. Yeah.
Welcome to the beta test challenge.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
Pretty much.
No, it's a really fun game, and it's one that I'd never heard or seen it before. When I did some research, it's actually been around for at least 3 years that I could find. And it does seem to be pretty popular. Some websites that actually just host it as a, I don't know if it's Java or what the heck they did it in, but it's a pretty popular game on there too. And there's even some high score challenges I saw from people doing it on phones and on the browser version as well. So I think it is a fairly popular game if you're in the casual gaming circle, which, as a retro, we're not too much into. I mean, we've got Flag and Bird, like Corn Flappy Bird and a few others like that. But it's a good time to be a CoCo gamer, though. We've had 2 new releases here, actually, just in the last month. We've had yours, and we also had Clickamania by Todd Wallace, which was his very first ML game he's ever done. So,
yeah, and Nick's good for a new game twice a year, it seems these days. So,
yeah, at least.
At least.
Now, I guess my last question before we go on to the Game On News, do you have like you were talking about possibly doing backports, MC10 of Poker Squares, and we talked in the pre-show about some other projects you had started and stopped type thing. Do you have anything that you're planning as your next project, or resurrecting an old project, if that happens to be the case, or are you more looking at doing something new again?
Well, I stopped working on my free cell game, also in the same resolution and the same funky colors. A while ago, I set it down and it stopped I actually hadn't programmed for a while. And so my plan is to pick that up again, which requires me to remember how the hell I did all of the things that I did up to that point, because I've set it aside long enough that I don't remember. And then after that, I know we had talked a little bit about Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail is not on my radar, and at this moment, I know it's a popular choice. I'd love to be able to play Oregon Trail on the CoCo as well, and I did get this years ago. I mean, like 4 years ago, got
pretty
far enough into developing Oregon Trail for the CoCo that I realized that any further I did not have the skill set to be able to accomplish it at that time. And I think I probably could complete it now. But with Oregon Trail, it was a little bit less of converting actual code, because I never had the source code for the machine language portions of Oregon Trail. It's a mix of basic. And so I converted all the basic that I could get my hands on, and pretty much have that. I had all that converted, but everything else, which includes really the game, is there's so much of it in assembly language that is just replicating it, not translating the code, as just watching the gameplay and then trying to replicate it. And so that's kind of a long process. So no, it's not on my radar right now.
There's the other old one we were talking about in the pre-show too. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, the other old one. Nah, we don't need to talk about that other old one. That other old one is probably seen its day. If I were to do another dungeon crawl game, a couple of years ago, I released just almost a demo of kind of like an isometric 3D view. And if for those of you who play Dungeons and Dragons, if you've ever seen some of the just the map sketches that people do, that looks like the floor is kind of hovering in space, and you can kind of see the earth underneath it a little bit, but it's like an isometric view. I had replicated that kind of a look on a CoCo in P mode 4 for a CoCo 1, 2, or 3, and I really was happy with the way that it turned out. And then it's just building a game around it. So if ever I were to do another dungeon crawler, it would probably be based on that. Yeah.
I believe a flippant comment from Sloopy here.
Oh,
talking about writing the code to do Oregon Trail. He said, 10, print hello. What's your name? 20, print hello, X string. You died of dysentery. Game done.
Not the original, like, creative computing 1976 version of Oregon Trail, Sloopy, like the really good Apple II version. Yeah.
Animated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the version you're doing is the 1985 rewrite, which is like the 3rd or 4th version. So with the kind of cool graphics and stuff.
Yeah, it's I mean, that would be a great project to go do. All I need is for someone to fund me for 2 years, so that I can stop working. So, let's do a GoFundMe or something, but
yeah, Patreon and that.
I kind of run into that on my projects.
Yeah, Bucko into saying the text version is the only cool one.
it does have the benefit of engaging one's imagination.
It's definitely period accurate.
Yep.
Yeah. And better yet, you have to do it on a teletype machine, none of this fancy screen stuff. So anyway, I'm looking for the Game On Challenge. Like I said, it's a very easy game to learn to play. There's only one control, and that's to hit the button to change your direction. That's it. Don't get hit by stuff. Eat the dot. It's dead simple, but hard to master. As you get into the later levels where you start getting stuff coming from the sides like the Pac-Man. Plus, you still got the other thing coming down at you, whatever we're going to call it, teeth or razor blade or whatever, a dip chip and stuff.
And there is a third enemy that I think Sloopy saw, but you have to get a fair way into the game before the third enemy appears.
Yeah, I guess one thing we can kind of reveal. It won't reveal what you're going to come up against there, but how many different levels of fruit, etc., is there total?
Well, there's 6 different fruits, but the game doesn't progress in difficulty past the 3rd fruit.
Okay.
So getting to the orange level, the level where it puts a little orange in the middle, that's really as far as the game gets in terms of throwing different things at you. And then it's just stamina.
Yeah, and luck.
Really luck, yeah.
Yeah, but Curtis runs out of stamina pretty quick.
Only after a 40-hour drive. as Ken to attest, we'll come up with that in the news too. Okay,
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Hopefully we'll see you on the live challenge on Thursday, and I definitely wanted you to come do a follow-up here on the Game On Challenge just to see what you can get everybody's opinions of the game that played it that wasn't on the live challenge, and maybe any suggestions or anything else. Or
and all the bugs.
Hopefully no more bug fix. Yeah, I was going to say hopefully no more bug reports, but you never know.
Never know.
And by next week, we should all come up with some good feature creeps.
That's cool because I'm sure there's a next version in the works at some point. And
yeah. And then next week's game will be the MC10 version because I imagine Simon will be done by then too. So.
I bet he's done now, which is why he's not here. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it for that. So join in on that game. You can, like you said, you can get it on Facebook if you get the latest version. Did you delete all the old versions on Facebook? I think. Like
yes.
Only the most recent one is there.
Yes.
If it shows up in the archive, that will be the slightly older version. So he'll be resubmitting that. And Ken posted it on our Discord in the Game On Challenge channel, I believe, or did you put in general?
General game posts. Actually, okay. Paul posted it in there, and then I just pinned his message.
Okay, and it's also available on my site, which I'll show the page here shortly, just so people can see it. But yeah, great game, and thanks for coming on. We'll see you on Thursday and next Saturday, hopefully both, and eventually we'll get you on for a full interview to go through all your games and your CoCo history, etc. too. So
cool. Thank you.
Okay. So I think I'll just jump straight into the Game On news. There's not a ton, but there's some. And some of it we've already kind of discussed.
We should probably run the
first commercial.
First commercial with the.
That's good because I'm out of coffee. So yeah, that works for me.
Bio time.
You are watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly video podcast featuring a Tandy color computer. We spread the love to the past, present, and future for all models, including the original color computer, the CoCo 3, and the world-renowned exclusive French Canadian CoCo 2. The Radio Shack.
CoCoTALK would like to thank the patrons who sponsor our program, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Boat and Aaron, Brendan Donahue, Brian Weasler, Brian Walsh, Karen Anscombe, D. Bruce Moore, Daddy Burrito, Daniel Williams, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Vebke, Grant B., Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, Jay Style, Ken Reichert, Malfunct, Melly, Michael Pitsley, Mike Rayburn, OG Hugo, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Retro Tech Time, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tim Thayer, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom Heron, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you ever so much, patrons.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on News with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
And take it away, Curtis.
Okay. So as we alluded to earlier, I got the web page up, which actually has a download. I took not all the different color sets that Paul showed, but just some to kind of give you an idea. And then a little bit of the gameplay. The first couple of levels here, and a bit of a write-up. And the actual download there. So you've got multiple places to get it. So if you're not on Facebook or you're not on our Discord, there's different alternative ways to get it. And if you're on those, of course, they're much easier to find. So grab the game and download it and join on the Game On Challenge this week. It's a fun game. And this is a little bit of video gameplay that I'll put up on Facebook. I do like your bouncing shapes too. That was a nice little touch.
Well done.
So, did the audio come through for everybody there?
Yeah, it did.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought to give the title screen and make it kind of also an attract screen, so it has something going on instead of catch your interest every once in a while.
I have to say, looking at it, if you're considering this a DIP chip, like an actual computer chip, like a RAM chip or something, it looks like one I would have taken out because it's all damaged and the pins are bent
pretty
manually,
damaged.
so-
Yeah.
It does sort of look like an IC. Yeah.
It looks like a Curtis
That's what I
uninstalled
thought it
IC.
was.
Yeah.
well, let's call it that. I like that best, actually.
Yeah. Then you just put the random chip numbers on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those who have not actually seen the game in action, that's what it looks like. And like I said, you just hit the button and you switch directions, and you can't stop. So you're constantly checking to see where stuff's coming at you.
Is that so?
Just like Timberman, where you get hit by the tree.
Yeah. That's the fun thing. Like some of these games that are very, very simple in concept and controls actually are the most fun because you don't have to learn a bazillion things and read a manual and everything else, which, as I've discovered, most people don't bother doing anyway. So if you can come up with a game that's dead simple, it's more popular.
You know what, Curtis? I wonder if Paul Fiscarelli's going to come up for a bot for this one.
Yeah. Please don't. And then at least until the challenge is over.
Challenge accepted.
No. Challenge
VR
accepted
version.
after Saturday, next Saturday. So this is Simon's first post here, or maybe second post. I think he had a screenshot that actually had some garbage in the background when he first converted. He hadn't even cleared the screen yet, but he got the initial splash screen with his little added MC10 version by Invis, which is his short for Invisible Man, which is his handle that he did when he was on the demo scene on the Commodore 64 back in the day. And he still uses today. And then he did a little update just this morning, which I'll play a little bit of, where he's actually got the screen with the animations on there with the go size moving and the fruit bouncing up and down too. So
yeah, it's worth noting that I mentioned my game makes liberal use of vertical blank, and that there isn't a vertical blank for the MC10.
Yeah, not a real one. You can do that little timing trick and use the built-in timer on the 683. But
yeah, he's going to have to figure. Of course, I'm sure he knows how to do that, but he'll have to work around that limitation as well. So it's like I said,
you'll have to do the move the bar, the color or whatever, up or down until it disappears at the top of the screen.
Yeah, basically you tell to adjust where VSync is going to be triggered, because you can set a programmable timer. You just don't know when it's actually lining up with a sync, but you can time it for 60 hertz. So you know exactly it's going to exactly be one scan.
Yeah, timing it for 60 hertz is easy. Getting it to trigger at the right time is the trick.
Yeah. That's where those little selection screens like John Linville and others have used, where you can move this little orange bar. You're changing between the two color sets, green and orange, and you move it up until it's off in the V blank area. Then you know that's when you trigger, and then you have the programmable timer just follow through with that. There, a bit of nerdiness from James and me.
Nothing rage quittable.
All right, next up, this is a channel I've not seen before, and it's called Retro Rewind. It has nothing to do with Frank and RetroRewind.ca, and it's basically been around for a while. It's a software retro. It's retro, not just computer retro too. He goes through all kinds of retro things, and he's from the UK, I believe. So he decided to play Dragon 32 games, and he played Chambers and Shock Trooper here, and no manual, of course, so he has no idea what he's doing. Chambers, he kind of figured out pretty good. He actually didn't do too bad. Shock Trooper, he didn't even figure out that you could hold down the button to fire a longer flamethrower. So he's tapping it constantly, trying to block bullets. And of course, it just, flips a little flame out for like a split second. So sometimes you catch it, sometimes you wouldn't. So read your manuals, folks. That's all I can recommend for advice there. I will mention he gets very spirited in the game and swears a lot when he gets frustrated. So if you're into that kind of thing, I found it hilarious because he was just overreacting to everything type thing. But it's a pretty fun video. And like I said, in Chambers, he actually kind of figured out at least part of what he was doing. He got into multiple chambers. He actually solved some of the chambers and stuff there. He didn't realize you could change the maps. There's a whole sequence of different maps of multiple screens on each map type thing that you have to go through. There's a lot of gameplay in that thing. But other than that, it's a pretty good review, and he did have fun on it. So, and it's a channel I'll kind of watch. If he does any more Dragon 32 or Dragon 64 stuff here, I'll definitely check into it. And I would play a clip, but I don't remember where he starts swearing profusely at it, so I'll just skip that because we're normally a family show. Next up, our Game On Challenge this week. Now, Ken, I believe you actually received some score submissions from AJ and Tim, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
Which actually are screenshotted from this very show here.
They are.
So I'll play a little bit of it. I think there might be some 4-letter words later on, but I'll stop it before it hits that. There's also a shout out to the Taylor and Amy show here for helping them clear a joystick.
Guess what today is?
What's today?
Recording day.
Don't tell them the secret.
God, I'm so excited. We have something fun planned.
Yes, we have a Pitfall clone today. We're going to be playing Pitfall by Ken Kalish.
It's not Pitfall, it's Trapfall. Get it straight.
Well,
Can you tell they're siblings already?
Let's be honest, this is Pitfall. It's Ken Kalish's version of Pitfall called Trapfall. Works on a 16K color computer 1. It's got okay sound. It's got okay graphics.
I do like the sound. I'm not sure I'm in love with the game though.
Anyway, I'll let you watch the rest of the video there, but they actually are using an Atari joystick that the Taylor and Amy show recommended them to get. So they're actually playing like, basically the equivalent on a CoCo of what you would have used in Atari 2600. Now, I will say my memories are a bit vague on the Atari 2600 version of Pitfall. I haven't played it in years. But for those of you who might have played it more recently, I believe it's not quite as pixel perfect as the CoCo version. I think it's a little bit easier, is it not? Has anybody here on the panel played it recently?
It's not that different. I felt that they played very similarly from that perspective.
So it's just as hard as
just be a little bit off. Yeah, it's just as hard.
Oh, okay.
Jumping over the scorpions is near impossible on the 2600 too.
I thought it was much easier on the 2600 and the Atari 8-bit. Because I actually played the Atari 8-bit on the show for a little bit thinking I was going crazy.
Well, that has nothing to do with playing Pitfall, but anyway, it's one of their great reviews. I'm just trying to remember. There's a lot of cool little quotes and comments that they did, going back and forth because they were both getting quite frustrated with the game. So it was great. And they're playing the original 1.0 version, which has that bug where if you leap off the vine and then you hit jump, as soon as you land on the ground, you actually jump down into the ground and then you're screwed until you die, basically. So I don't think anybody hit that with the 1.1, so I'm pretty sure that's what 1.1 was supposed to fix. So those of us who have the original 1.0, which is what I was playing, I just know not to hold the joystick button down when you jump off a vine. Otherwise, that happens. So I just kind of got it in reflex in my memory from the old days. I just never do that, so I don't get stuck in the ground. But every once in a while, it still happens. And I try to remember Tim really hated this game. He said he wants to meet Ken Kalish and tell him to rewrite his collision detection and stuff on it. So I think he rated it like half a joystick or something like that. One thing I will mention now that they mentioned in the show too is that they're making plans because they record once a month, and they record 4 shows worth at once. But they are talking about they might try to start scheduling so they can come on to the live challenge on Thursday, maybe once a month too, if they can pick a game that they both think they really like and not get too frustrated with or something like that. But they're going to try to actually make it onto the live challenges one of these days. So Ken, keep an eye out for that. And Tim, if you're listening to this, and AJ, just let us know if you know which one you will be popping on, and we'll try to promote it on the show the week before that you'll be live guests on it. Just to help promote your channel. And next up, Jim Gary did another conversion here. This is a game called Kajellion, if I'm pronouncing that right. Originally from Mycom Basic Magazine in August 1985. I'm not even sure what platform that was originally for. Now, it's a rather interesting game. It's kind of like, if you remember the old escape games where you have like a maze and there's, bombs and guards chasing you and stuff, and you have to grab money and sneak around walls, etc. Pretty basic. I mean, I'm trying to remember, John Linville did one similar to that on the MC10 and on the CoCo. I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head. Christmas Rush. No, Christmas.
Christmas Rush.
Yeah. We're basically trying to dodge guards and go around the trees and try to escape. In this case, you're just adding treasures you have to pick up at the same time. The unique thing about this version, though, is that it's actually split screen. So it's got 2 mazes side by side. It's exact same play field. Your player shows up on both, but one side has where the gold bars and the walls are, and the other side has where the guards and the bombs are. So you have to keep track of both screens simultaneously to make sure you're not running into, like you're running towards a $, which is a treasure on the right-hand screen, but there's a bomb in your way that you can see on the left-hand. So you kind of have to keep track of both mazes simultaneously. It reminds me a lot of Grabber that way, which is Atomic's classic, one of my favorites of all time. So I'll play a little bit of that there, but just wanted to kind of explain, how that works in case it's confusing. Now, it was originally released in 1985. This is actually a modified one from 88, but that he based it on. So this is the first level. You only have one guard, which is the @ sign chasing you, and he's dropping bombs. So you have to kind of keep track of those. And then the right side, the number signs are walls, the $ signs are the treasures you're trying to get. And there you saw he just got killed, going towards the treasure, but not keeping track of the other side of the screen. So that's an interesting take on that style of game. I quite like the dual screen version of it. Anyway, that kind of gives you an idea. I won't play the whole 3.5 minutes here, but interesting take on it. I think if somebody spices up with some graphics and stuff, that actually would be a pretty nice presentable game on the CoCo too. So I don't know if that's something maybe Paul Shoemaker might want to tackle at some point. I don't know.
Interesting.
Anyway, that's all the Game On news I had this week, because we covered most of it during the Game On challenge, talking about Paul's game. So I will go straight into the regular news.
Can I interject something for a second?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I just want to make a shout out because speaking of games, many of us back in the day would type in programs in the magazines and such and play them on our computers. And as many of us know, Frodo NL, a person of the community, this past Friday actually sat down and on his stream typed in the entire game
for Spectrum game, yeah,
for the Spectrum, and it actually worked the first time through.
Well, he had a couple minor bugs he had to fix, but yeah,
minor bug. But I mean, it was playable the first time through, and it's that is quite the accomplishment even today.
Yeah, it was several pages of code to type in too. So
yeah.
Wait, you mean on these type-in games, there's actually a game to play at the end? It's not just type it in and find all the bugs? I thought that was the game.
It's the pixel perfect type-in.
Yeah, This is a great game. You got to type it in. You spend a week typing it in, you get it, and you play it once, and this sucks.
You typed it in.
And then mom turns off the computer.
Yeah, before you had a chance to save it. Yeah, actually, I watched part of the stream there when he was doing it. It was part of a charity, actually, too.
Yeah.
So it was for a good cause.
But I want to give him a gold Game On thumbs up for such the feat.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron and Brent tried that on ARG Presents, the Amigos, their Sunday show. They actually did 2 CoCo type-in games from Rainbow, and they both happened to pick Gopher games by coincidence, one for the CoCo 1, one for the CoCo 3. But they kind of cheated a little bit and did really, really small type-in games, or maybe like a quarter of a page, whereas Frodo did several pages of magazine, and there's a whole chunk of data statements with just numbers. Those are always the ones that screwed me up when I was typing in, because you got just number after number after number, and commas, and they just run together after a while. So the fact you got it that close the first try and only had a couple quick little bugs to fix was pretty amazing. I have to agree with Sloopy on that one. It's not something I think I'd attempt.
Once they got checking system that did a checksum on your line that you typed in, it wasn't so bad because you knew right away you had made a mistake, because the checksum that it came up with was different.
Yeah, there was 2 techniques they really did. The Rainbow Checksum was a big one, the Rainbow Check as it was called. Then they did Rainbow Check Plus a year or 2 later, which kind of does a like you said, a checksum. But they also formatted the listings to be the same width of characters that the screen is, 32. So if you could be typing along, as long as you put the spaces and stuff in the exact spot, you could see if you went out of alignment, you added a character, you missed one. And you could immediately see when the word wrapped around that, oh, that's on the right spot. You could catch it pretty quick. So there's 2 things they did to try to help you type things in.
One of the programs I posted on Facebook, somebody, instead of cutting and pasting it in an emulator and saving it, they typed it in. And I was like, you did what?
That's hardcore, man.
And they made a mistake on the data statements. And the first thing I told them was to check the data statement. Oh, I double checked it. It's right. No.
And Sloopy, yeah. Sloopy, I want to thank you for actually mentioning Frodo in his stream last night, because I wanted to mention something I kind of forgot to mention earlier here because I didn't have a screenshot because his stream was still going. But he did his standard Saturday morning live stream where he takes suggestions of games to play on every platform that he could do it in his Mister. And I happened to catch it earlier this morning, and I gave him a couple CoCo suggestions. And the 2 games I suggested for him, he played a few extra ones on top of that, was Todd Wallace's Clickomania that was just released a month ago, and also Paul Shoemaker's new Ghost Rush game. So we actually, Frodo tried both of those live on the stream on Twitch. So,
nice.
If you want to check those out, you can watch him playing those games. Probably half an hour into the stream. I can't remember exactly what time it was. But if you're on Twitch or actively on Twitch, you should be able to find Frodo NL is his name on there, and you can check out his live stream and check out some CoCo games in there too. He tried Donkey Monkey too, which is a bit frustrating controls once again. So that seems to be a recurring theme for some reason.
It's easy to animate. It's hard to interface with a human.
Yeah. That's why Terminators just got rid of that whole problem. Okay, so I will switch over to the regular news. Let me get my window up so I can see it. Change the sharing today. Okay, so Rick Euland, you can pipe in on some of this stuff too, because I think you've seen these as well, and it's concerning your product. So Mikey Furman has been doing a couple things. Like we covered his ping and some other testing he did last week. So he's released a couple new videos this week. The first one is a 10-minute video roughly showing the network card with ping and echo U commands, which is basically to send echo strings back and forth. And he's running this on a CoCo 1 and 2. So this card works on a CoCo 1 or 2. It doesn't require CoCo 3. Now, obviously, he's using a CoCo VGA because he's running the 64x32 text screen with true lowercase here. And I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but I'll just let him kind of explain a little bit how to set up here. And then I'll jump over to the other video where the more interesting stuff is happening.
Sys interfaces. And this file looks like it was basically straight out of Linux. Ethernet 0, my IP address, gateway, netmask, MAC address, and he added one thing, physical address. So if you have this file, next you can run the command to actually configure the card. So you do that by running ccio-i for initialize. So it will read, I need to do one thing first.
Hello, OS9.
All right.
This is why EOU has a huge commands directory, in case somebody's wondering. That problem disappears.
Yes.
And so it confirmed all the settings that we saw in the configuration file are now on the card. Now, the card should be ready to talk to the interwebs. So let's try ping first. I'm going to ping my Raspberry Pi here at CoCo Pi 16.11. Hey, it says ping timeout. That's not supposed to happen.
I like the fact he leaves his videos with all the mistakes too.
The play-by-play here. I like that.
If I try pinging the gateway.
This is more like a realistic way things go.
Well, realistically, it'd be cussing by now.
Well, I need this Raspberry Pi, so I'm going to have to find out.
Mikey's a nice guy. He doesn't care.
Exactly what its IP address is. Let's try pinging something on the internet. I like using
Google
name servers. They're easy to remember. This is Google. Yeah, I can ping that.
Google lives,
And
don't
try one
launch the
more.
bombs.
I do want to note the time shown here is not milliseconds, seconds, or anything. This is simply the number of times that the code goes around the loop waiting for the ping to come back. All right, so I need to retrieve this IP address. So that should work. All right, so this is the ping utility. Also have another utility. One of the first internet daemons, one of the very earliest requests for comments or RFCs, is the echo service. It's RFC 862. And these days, in this day and age, it's normally a service that's turned off because there's some security issues with it. Well, I turned this service on my Raspberry Pi for testing, and I enabled it on both TCP and UDP. So what the echo service does is you connect to the service, and whatever you send it, it sends you right back. And again, it does it on both UDP and TCP. So I have enough of my library done where we can actually test this. So I have this program called EchoU. And if I run this, it'll give us the usage. So you can either have -u to have it do an echo test on UDP or -t to have it on TCP. So let's do UDP first. Echo U, we'll do UDP 172.16.1.11. Get that typed in correctly. And let's see what that does. Hello, Internet. Hello, Internet. All right. So that seems to work. It spoke to my Raspberry Pi. Let's try TCP. Echo U -t 172.16.1.11. Should look exactly the same. And it does. Last thing is I am going to show you guys this program. Just have a little look at it. So
I won't do this. He actually goes through the actual source code listing for some of these utilities and stuff here. I also mentioned in the chat, he says, boring. Oh, wait, that's me.
That's what they
great
all say.
self-deprecating. That's great self-deprecating humor. I love that.
Paint dry.
And yes, Mikey, you can heckle yourself. So that was his first video. And then a few days later, he actually did this one here. I think this is more what Rick was talking to and referring to earlier. So Rick, you want to give a little bit of background on this before I play a little clip? The NTP date thing, or do you know too much about that?
You know, I mean, real-time clocks are great, but we could just ask somebody. So you've got a network card, NTP, forget RTC, NTP, NTP, NTP.
Now this one he presented a bit differently here. He's actually kind of got a bit of a wrapper around it and with a little bit of humor too. So I'll play the beginning of that, and we'll fast forward.
I think what's happening here, he said he was going to implement DriveWire, and along the way he's implementing all of TCP utils and everything else. So, hey, I'm a fan.
Hello everyone, this is Mikey N6IL. Let's see what I've got going on my CoCo 2 today. Let's bring up Nitrous 9 and see what we can do on there. Aw man, why are my silly CoCos always asking for the time?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'll do the Jason comment. Ooh.
I wish there was a better way, so that I didn't have to enter the time every single time I boot Nitrous 9. Let's see if we can answer that question in the riddle I posted on Facebook. My CoCo needs to know what time it is, and it can send and receive UDP packets. Oh, I wonder if there's some way that I could make use of my Computer Connect CoCo IO and Ethernet card. Maybe there is. Let's have a look at the startup file. Set time. That's the way that Nitrous 9 pretty much always comes up. Let's change this. Initialize the CCIO card and then mtp date -s -p. All right, that looks correct. Let's save this and restart. Yay! I don't have to enter the time anymore. And I don't need no stinking real-time clock either. I'm going to show a little bit about how this works.
Now, I won't go through all that because that's 15 minutes of going through the source code and how everything works there. I'll leave it to the people that are into this kind of thing to actually go through that. It's actually very informational. I actually did watch it all the way through, but yeah, I like the fact you present it with a bit of humor. I like that. I appreciate the fact that he's still awake in the chat, even to last long enough to get to his story. But yeah, this is one thing, like we've been talking like for years about RTCs, real-time clocks, the hardware versions of like smartwatches, etc., which we did back in the day in the 80s and 90s. And with something like a networking card, like what Rick's doing, and Jim Brain's got one on the go too, is that you really don't need to do that anymore. Now, you probably will have to refresh the clock every once in a while because the CoCo is not perfect at keeping in track. There's certain functions that have like a long time where interrupts are shut off, or you're using a real floppy drive and it halts the CPU dead, so it loses some time. So you'll have to refresh it every once in a while. And to be honest, we did that with the smartwatches too. We'd have it refreshed maybe once every minute or once every hour and kind of, refresh the time so it's totally up to date instead of it drifting off. But this kind of solves the problem. You don't need any hardware. You don't need extra slots. You don't need a multi-pack. You don't need to like take a cartridge apart and piggyback a smartwatch on a ROM chip or any of that kind of stuff. You can just do it all in software with the one card here. And the card just doesn't do just that. I mean, like some of the one that Ron DeVoe showed earlier, which was a real-time clock cartridge. That's all it did. That was its dedicated purpose in life. With a network card, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. I mean, this is just scratching the surface. This is just the start.
Right. Come for the clock, keep it for the cat memes.
Yeah. I mean, well, you've been working on the World Wide Web Wrangler.
Right. The thing is, I think, is that what's being done here is just kind of a NetUtils in general thing. It's not particularly the clock or a ping. We're actually making a network stack for Baby OS 9, and Jim's card should be able to work with it with a more complex driver than this thing needs. But, this should all work together. So I'm
because
really
once the
excited.
driver functionality is done, you can make common libraries that don't care which version of the driver, which version of the hardware you're running, and you can just...
Right. Michael's code should work with, Jim's card if there's a driver that he can talk to.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is exciting stuff.
And you'll be able to eventually do stuff like FTP files back and forth, IRC chat, like Todd Wallace showed us his IRC chat, the weather app that he's doing. This all would use this as well instead of using DriveWire. And then also for people like Nick Parentes, if we can get a common set, now we'll have to make disk basic ones that are common to some sort of libraries for that as well. But eventually you could start doing real-time games played across the net.
Right.
Head-to-head, et cetera. So,
and the cool thing is the setup is, this. it's a game card with a network jack on top. And that's it.
Since I've been messing. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying it doesn't require a lot of faffing around, DriveWire connections in a host PC or Pi or.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of it. It becomes part of the CoCo itself. You don't need an extra computer running something in the background.
I've been working with Rick on trying to do some software on this, and one of my thoughts was having a layer for both OS 9 and just extended color basic that looks kind of like DriveWire, so that any DriveWire applications could be fairly easily moved over and use the CoCo IO or something else for the transport, because that'll make it really easy to take existing software and pretty easily have it working with new hardware.
As long as it's expandable past that, because there's some stuff we could do here that's not built into DriveWire. I don't know if Mikey's planning on implementing a bunch of stuff there, but yeah, this actually has more expansion possible. Nick, I know we've talked about it a bit in private and stuff here too. Like this is something that could be exciting for you once if the library layers for extended basic and OS 9 come out, that it becomes fairly easy to write code to actually communicate with this and actually have to go over. I think you see some pretty interesting possibilities with head-to-head games or multiplayer games, etc. too. So
yeah, it'd be good. I'd like to see a Wi-Fi version of these cards.
Right. For now, I've got the thing that Mark showed me. This little what's it that can be?
It's a travel router.
Yes, it can be Wi-Fi in, or it can be wired in or wired out, and Wi-Fi in or Wi-Fi out, and it can be a hot point. It can be anything else in the world. And so
the way we were using it at this last CoCo Fest is that I plugged Rick's little netbook into it, connected to the hotel's Wi-Fi, and basically got it got his laptop authenticated, because I have a captive portal you have to get past. And then I copied the Mac to that device, and so it connected to the hotspot. And so then I have an Ethernet port that goes Wi-Fi to the hotel. And then we could plug the CoCo and IO into it, and we pulled up Curtis's webpage.
Yeah, with my too long of links, I got a little bit too wordy, apparently.
Yeah. We fixed that, but that's okay. I broke the rest of the program while I was putting the menus in, so.
Ain't software development grand.
So
it's an arms race.
Good,
what I'd like to see eventually is just a cartridge. Just plug it in, and that's it. It's got Wi-Fi, no wires, no things dangling on the outside. Just a cartridge in your multi-pack.
The problem I'm trying to avoid is, if I make a specific solution, everyone will write to one specific solution, and then no one can do anything different. That's what we wrote to. So I'm trying to be as stupid as I possibly can right now and get solutions written for the very basic Ethernet, and then whatever we do to Wi-Fi on top is what we do on top of that.
Can you have both in the cartridge?
Well, yeah, of course we can, but I don't have an unlimited budget, and right now, wired Ethernet, least common denominator. Let's get some drivers out and some code out, and then we can add Wi-Fi on top, or
once everything's kind of built, tested, and everything's working.
Yeah, I don't want to get another 87 sound card situation where everyone's written to one specific solution and there's no common ground in the middle. So this is really stupid. It's very common. And if we expand from there, it's like a tree. It'll,
One thing would be nice with the Wi-Fi solution is not to use a serial port, kind of like the Zy-Modem Wi-Fi modules, because then you'd have to write like a slipper PPP layer like you used back in the dial-up days in order to get your networking on top of that. It'd be nice to actually just have something like a ESP32 that would actually literally tie in, have some sort of registers, more like a network card. But that's a whole nother level of hardware.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that when you think about Wi-Fi, you then run into problems with that is different regions of the world have different channels that you can and can't use legally. And then you've got, yeah. And then you also run into the other issue is what if you're in an area where your RF spectrum is so overloaded, the Wi-Fi doesn't work. So now you got a solution that you can't use because the radio frequencies are just jammed.
Well, David, if you're in a country and you've got a router set up that's limited to that country, you're not going to be able to configure your Wi-Fi whatever for the CoCo and connect to anything. So I think that's kind of a moot point. But
I think Mikey has a good thing in the comments. He's writing a BSD socket library for OS 9, and then you can do it that way you will. But once he's done that with, it's software right now, it's hardware dependent to my card, but it doesn't have to be. But it's not so, don't get too complicated right away. Get networking going. And then
get the basics done. Then we can add the Wi-Fi as an extra layer on top, and maybe come up with a couple of common solutions that might be more country agnostic.
But right now there's nothing, and it's been 25 years of trying to do something and never really doing. No one's congealed around any one thing. Let's just do something really, really vanilla and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like I understand Nick's point of view, because I mean, for some people, the situation is how physically things are set up. Wi-Fi is almost a necessity. Like my active CoCo is actually in a completely different room, and I don't have the cabling to stretch it over, and I don't want to blast holes through my walls to drag it over there. So eventually getting to Wi-Fi would be something I'd want to do as well.
Although, to be honest, if I had to put Wi-Fi in the card right now, this is cheaper.
Yeah, plus we can probably actually get the parts.
well, $30 and plug it into the $50 thing I got, and you're done. Where it would probably cost me $30 to get Wi-Fi into it and get it built and get it out there and try to absorb.
Then we got to drive the software.
And software,
What was that? I missed that. What was that?
Oh, this is the little TCP link. What's a good?
AC 750 for 950.
Here, I'm going to stop sharing here so Mark can spotlight so you can see what you're doing here.
Oh, there you go. He's got it. Perfect.
Okay, now, yep.
Hey, hold it up, Rick, so that.
So you buy that, right? Yep.
Yeah, and it's
Mr. Ladd told me about this.
It can be the hotspot. It can be you can plug Ethernet into it, pull Ethernet out of it, make it the hotspot.
I see. Yeah,
all kinds of iffy things. And, comes with a cute little short cable that hangs right up the back of the multi-pack, and you're done.
So you get a cable from that into your cartridge, basically.
Yep. And then you have a wireless solution.
Yep.
It comes,
without having to write a bunch of extra drivers and stuff here. You just basically have to configure it. Right?
Right. So it gets it going for now, and we can work on our basic Ethernet stack and not really get distracted by
adding another layer of Wi-Fi protocols and stuff on top of it.
Yeah, I picked something like that up for $12 from Newegg a few months back. So
right.
I thought there may have been a one of these little shields that you see on the internet that you could basically build that into your cartridge and tap off the Ethernet connections.
Well, see,
it's not that easy.
All of that stuff wants to lean on the ARM chip in the Raspberry Pi that it's shielding over, and we don't have that.
I see.
So,
right. Okay.
Anyway, it's definitely making progress, and then much kudos and thanks to Mikey for kind of driving the bus here, getting some of this little stuff working. I think he mentioned that, Kat, you said that currently the code is not web abstracted, currently hardware dependent. It could use refactoring, but I mean, this is just basically to make sure everything's working and testing, to make sure that we can get certain protocols like ping, et cetera, working as well too. So I mean, this is early days, but definitely progress is being made. So
he can start the card and set the time faster than I can type it in, even with all the cheats, spaces for delimiters and
I just press enter.
right. All my files were done many years ago.
If you're just firing up Nitrous 9 to play games or something, you don't really need to type in the time. Development wise, though, I keep track of different versions of stuff, and it's all time based to make utility, of course, if you're doing a large assembly program that has like 30 different files. You don't have to reassemble the whole darn thing every time. You only updated one or two. Date's critical for me. So whether it's done through an RTC or the software clock or through the Ethernet card, one of them has to work. Otherwise,
I have a dumb question maybe, but does RSDOS, when it saves files, save a time when it was saved?
Nope.
Never has.
ADOS 3
Nope.
Extended
Never
did.
has.
ADOS 3 Extended did.
Okay. Because I thought I remember seeing that sometime somewhere.
Yeah, ADOS is the only one I know of. I don't think STC DOS or HDB DOS or any of those do that either. I think only ADOS, ArtFlexor's DOS extensions.
That was
allow
one
that.
thing I always wish I'd have had when I was a kid, because which version was the last one?
Especially when you have like 4 discs that all just have a Radio Shack label. You forgot to write something on it. They're all the same program, and you can't remember which is the latest one I did the bug fix on.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
And then another question is, how did he get the 40 column mode? Do you set it to 40 column mode and then boot the Nitrous 9 up?
Well, that's Nitrous 9 level 1, so that's booting in 32 column mode like a CoCo 1 and 2, because he's running it on a CoCo 2. And then he's got a CoCo VJ, and there's a special version of Nitrous 9 that actually knows how to handle the CoCo VJ, and they immediately kick you into 64 by 32 with lowercase.
So can that be downloaded somewhere?
Yep. It should be on the repo, I believe, right, David?
I don't know, because after we did our fixes to make that stuff work, it got posted. I haven't touched it in, what has it been, 3 years now? So
Could be there. Probably not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at some point after version 1 of EOU's released, I'm actually going to go revisit that because I want to do some other additions. I was talking to Brendan about some ways of doing things, like some of the extra features he's added here. The way the driver is currently set up, it would be slow, and we already kind of figured out a way to fix it. In fact, if he does some changes to the firmware, the CoCo VJ, I think we can speed up quite a bit.
Well,
And-
doesn't it look really sweet in that font?
Well, we need to add palette support, because then you don't have to do black on green. You can do like, white on dark blue or something.
Yeah.
Something that's a bit easier on the eyes. So yeah, there's definitely some plans of we have to add palette support and a few other things too. But that was just enough to get it up and running. We even a 639 optimized version, so it scrolls a lot faster too. So
cool.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on the repo. I just don't know if it's on the publicly available main builds, or is that one of the nightly builds that's been hanging around for 3 or 4 years or what?
well, the nightly builds it should be a part of. There has not been an official release that I know of yet in a few years. So
yeah, Mikey's even saying, he says, not sure if it's on the repo, but I can post it if it's not. I know it's on the nightly builds because that's where I downloaded to test it out here when I finally got my CoCo VGA. Because I was doing it blind the first time. You had to test it because I didn't have the card to try it on.
So Mikey's
Yeah.
on here somewhere?
He's on the chat right now, yeah.
Oh, is he? Well, he did a great job.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive seeing this stuff working.
Yeah.
And like once some of the more low level stuff's done and Todd can start porting some of his drive wire based code, like his IRC chat, his weather reporter that we talked about a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff will start working directly off this card too. And that software's pretty already done. You just got to change the interface layer of it. That's it. The rest of it's done. So we'll get a sudden jump of programs available.
I'm thinking that under OS 9 there should be like a drive wire shim type of thing that would make pretty much that transparent, at least to make it easier for the people to port their code. So
yeah, I don't know enough what you guys are doing and how you guys are planning on setting up the drivers here. I mean, we definitely want some raw network driver stuff here that you can do everything. Because from my understanding, DriveWire has got some limits.
What my card needs is a memory manager for OS 9. The way its ring buffer and everything works, if you could abstract all of that away from the applications, it would make everyone's life so much easier. But I don't know who to talk to about that, or
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways to do it. You could do a raw driver. You could do a driver that interfaces with VRN because that handles memory mapping of 8K blocks across the entire 2 meg system. You may even want to make a special version for the 8 meg board that Ed Snyder's doing. And just like we were talking about, what use do you have the 8 meg? Because using 8 meg in Nitrous 9 itself as raw regular memory would break a lot of things because that goes past the 8-bit limit. So you'd have to redo all the maps and how the mapping processes works. And there'd be a ton of rewrites. You'd probably break some code outright, to be honest.
Oh,
so we were thinking like you could use it as a RAM drive, right? That's what most people are doing, or maybe a sound sample or something. Now you could maybe use that extra 6 meg for a huge ring buffer for your network card.
Well, so we could get really deep. There's another version of the WizNet chip that is just 16K direct addressable chunk of RAM. If you could drop that into an MMU map somewhere, wouldn't that be cool? Because, you could dump the raw screen data into the WizNet and then just display it on the screen. And you're done. I would think a few bytes.
I would think drivers that would do streaming, like just opening a file and then just be able to pull data, push data,
right,
would be handy even under standard basic and disk extended color basic. Yeah, just be able to open a file.
So the situation, the WizNet that we have right now can sit on 4 Ethernet frames at a time and keep that connection alive. So they can be UDP frames, they can be TCP frames, it can be downloading data that you're working on, but it can keep those 4 frames alive for you. So we just have to get that 8K of data, 2K, 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 into the CoCo somehow and do something with it so we can move on. We don't have to worry about the Ethernet connection or any of the network stuff. That's all just kind of taken care of. It's just handle this memory. So
maybe base it on one of the RAM disk drivers, because that's basically what it is doing internally.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know enough to know what I need to do here, but that's our challenge. Mikey's taking care of the network side of it with all of the socket code, but then how do we get the data out of the chip now that we've loaded it up?
Have you thought about Prevagen?
Excuse me?
Prevagen, make your mind think. The drug for your brain.
More Adderall or something. I don't know.
I would have thought of that, but I forgot.
Really.
Anyway, no, it's a really, really cool project. It's a collaboration of multiple people in the CoCo community, like Mark and Rick and Mikey and others have all been involved with this. And it's definitely progressing at a pretty good pace. I mean, you demonstrated a very early version of Web Wrangler, only a month ago, and then you've kind of been updating that, and now we've got these other utilities. Todd Wallace, of course, has done some stuff that's currently using DriveWire, but he definitely wants to kind of join in the fun here too and get some of his stuff running on it as well. So lots of potential.
I can remember back in the early days of CoCoTALK when the subject came up of TCP/IP for the CoCo or anything like you're talking about was probably out of the question, wasn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, because we're going to do it in software. Now, I would say it's out of the question. The K9Q project back from the late 80s actually had SLIP. It had FTP. It had SMTP and a bunch of the other protocols done. It required a 512K CoCo. Was not easy to set up. Had some hard-coded stuff for certain RS-232 packs, too. So, it didn't work with Rick's old 16550 card, the Fast 232. But it was working. And people were setting up CoCos with their own FTP servers live on the web and, sending mail back and forth and all kinds of stuff. So some stuff was done. It was a huge package, though. It was not ease of use for sure. It was like complete geek alert. Here you go, have fun, type of thing. This is getting to the point where, like Rick's doing with his Web Wrangler, you can write a basic 9 program. You don't have to get into assembly or C if you don't want to, and actually write something that works on the web and works on the internet. So, I think that's the biggest potential here. Is this makes it so much easier for programmers to access, and then you can start writing, games or, IRC utilities or whatever.
So to explain it to me, who doesn't understand this stuff, is basically you're offloading all the heavy work to a chip.
Yeah, dedicated chip. Yep.
And then you're just accessing where you need to get the data to show it on the CoCo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sending from the CoCo to the chip. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that pretty well sums it up.
So it's pretty much 4 serial ports built into one, except network. That's
Do I win something?
Yes.
You get to be one of the beta testers later. That's
exactly. Put WeFax on it.
Hey.
And Mikey's, before I go on the next story, Mikey's last comment is, no tech talk allowed here. What kind of show is this? Where's my 32 slot MPI? And then I was going to figure David Ladd's going to go off on that. So
Nope. The current way that all the bits are set up in the MPI's register, 16 slots. That's it.
Well, you could plug two multi-packs in together like Daniel did that one show.
Yeah, but the thing is still the first MPICs that the other ones I don't think so. So therefore you're still limited to the 16 slots in the first one.
16 slots. Wow.
Just multiplex them.
Who would ever use that many?
Oh, I would, baby. I would.
You need it for the 16 sound cards.
There's not that many sound cards, Nick. Just pull that one out of your.
I can't go.
At what point does the power supply spark out?
I think somebody should need your own power supplies plugged into the cards at this point.
Oh, I was going to say I have a 3-phase power supply over here, so therefore I'm good.
Paul Barton had a large PC power supply hooked up at one point with one of his computers because he was playing with all the controllers and stuff. Lights dim.
I think that's enough on network cards this week. There'll be more updates networks, I'm sure. So getting back to the regular news here. So this one here is a video by Brenda Make, and she's had a lot of stuff on her channel doing a lot of different hardware things over the years. She hasn't done too many videos lately because she's actually been ill, but she's back into it. So this video here, I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's almost 3/4 of an hour long, but she got a CoCo 3, and then she got some upgrades for it. She got the 512K Triad expansion. She got a CoCo SDC, which she actually custom printed her own controller because she wanted it to look a lot more like the Radio Shack one. Got custom labels made. Then got the SCART cabled upgrade because it was kind of hard reading the composite type thing. And then fired up Nitrous 9, the stock 3.3 repo to go through some Basic 09 shell inception, I think is the best way to describe it. But it's a pretty interesting video just going through some of the stuff that she's done. So I'll just play a little bit of the intro and then I'll fast forward a little bit.
So this is the computer as pretty much as received, except for the feet in the bottom, and I'll show you that. The computer is in amazing condition, and there's only the slightest of polishing on the little base of the handrest here. So it's been used a little bit, but not that much. It looks like it has maybe a month or 2 months worth of use or something like that. And this
so she got a really decent quality, CoCo 3 that she got. And then here she's got the CoCo SDC. And let's go to her 3D printed.
However, I wanted something that looked a little bit more like the old FD502s. The original case that somebody made was a good case in that everything was on the end here, and it all really worked well, and it fitted on the case, and I don't know if you can see, but there's little slots there, and the CoCo SDC slides in there, and there's a little tapped hole, and there's a little notch here for the, so it can go into the cartridge. But what I wanted something that looked like the old FD502 like I had, and so I came up with this. And so, firstly, to crush all your expectations, like Nerd Rage says, this is not an easy 3D print, because if you 3D print this, you need support material, and that support material should only go up to about here if you print it this way. Then you need something fine like a precision screwdriver to put to carefully push all the support material out of these holes and stuff. If your 3D printer does spans really well, that'd be great. And you probably don't need support material except for right here. But this does overhang, and I think you'll need support for this. But if your printer does spans well, you might not need support here. The way I printed it, this particular one is printed with ABS inside of an enclosed, like an enclosed like chamber and stuff. And the print quality was pretty good, and I sanded it lightly and buffed it out lightly. And then, oddly, I took some comment and actually toned it down so it wasn't so shiny. You might be, as long as your computer doesn't get too warm and stuff, you might be able to get away with making this out of PLA, which is a lot easier to print. I don't think that this gets that warm and used, so you could probably use PLA. I wanted something really.
Yeah, I don't recall the SDC itself getting warm at all, really, printing.
No.
Yeah, when she talks about the label, it kind of shows putting it together. Initially fired it up. Then she takes apart to put in the triad upgrade. Gets it up and running. Does the memory test by, was that Richard Godekin? I think is the last name. I can't remember. The one that all of us use for testing up
right.
2 meg machines. And the SCART cable, she got the upgrade for that because she was getting some more patterns, and it's kind of fuzzy on composite, so she got that up and running. And then she did my favorite part, which I got to show because it's Nitrous 9, and I know we'll bug Nick. I'm going to dwell on this for a while. So
Basic 09 and OS 9. It's a kind of an OS 9 nested doll. This is going to be fun.
this is the Inception thing.
I'm going to start Basic 09. It's loaded. I'm going to make a test procedure. And this is not going to have much in it. And we can see we've got something named test with 32 byte process size, which is probably the name, the string name. I don't know why it's the data size. Maybe. Who knows? I'm not going to speculate. Anyway. And I can go over here on to hit clear, and I hit go over here and do a process. See what process are running, and we've got 2 shells, one here and one here with basic 09 running. And from here, I can type a dir command from here, and it forks kind of a temporary thing, a command, and executes it. But I'm still in the basic program. And but there was a mnemonic that you could I think it'll work with the command shell, but this is more fun. You just type curly braces, which basically makes a shell, and it forks another shell. We go over here and do process again, and we can see we have 3 shells now, as well as the process command at the bottom, and basic 09, which is actually it's probably sleeping right now, I guess. And you could do stuff. You can do CHD. We'll go over here. So we have CHD sys. And I moved over to sys. And so now let's start basic 09 inside this shell. And let's see, test 2, right? And we'll quit out of this, right? And so we got test 2. Now what do we have going? And it's starting to grow. Okay. And from here, let's start another shell. I think this will work. I think it's shell. Okay, we start another shell. What do we have going now? We better check the memory. It's 312K. There's a way to put 2 megabytes of memory in one of these systems by replacing the gimme chip. Anyway, let's soldier on. So I'm in basic. Actually, I was in the shell. I started basic. I started another shell inside of that. Started basic. Started another shell of that. That's where I am. And where are we? We can go. We're going to Brenda CHD. Oops, sorry. This isn't the best keyboard. Okay. I could go on. This is my own drawing program I submitted to, or parts of it that I submitted to Rainbow Magazine some 30 years ago. It got rejected because they already had another drawing program. We'd know which one. Anyway, so this could go on for quite some time. Let's see. Okay, so I'm in DD Brenda, and this has got a modified, more or less a modified shell that gives you your present working directory, what shell you are, which is 09. That's this, your ID, and which window you're running on. To kill this, so I'm in Brenda. To kill this, basically to collapse the shell, you type X, and now I'm back into basic 09, and I still have test 2, and it should be slightly less here, and we should have some M3. We should have some more memory.
Hey, I won't go through the whole thing, but basically it's forking a shell that's forks basic 09, that forks a shell that forks basic 09, that forks a shell that forks basic 09, all off one window, and then you can kind of step your way back through it all. So it's like a stack of programs. Totally useless, but kind of fun.
was coming
But
to
it
that
could be done.
conclusion, yeah.
Next up, Daniel O'Connor has been working on her new album called CoCo Music, and this is kind of how best to describe it, sort of ambient electronic music type thing, like a Jean-Michel Jarre type thing. And she actually wrote a program here that actually is controlling some of the synthesizers and the sequencers here. And this is kind of a pre-release version of this one particular song, and it's a long one because it's the stuff you want kind of running in the background, doesn't have singing, etc., so that you can concentrate what you're doing. It becomes background music. So this track's like 15 minutes long, and this is not the final version of it, but I thought I'd play a little bit of it here because it's actually kind of cool that the CoCo's controlling this. This is a CoCo 1 too, not a 3. So it's not even that big of a program doing it all. And she has some manual playing over top of it too, but the sequencing of the percussion stuff's all being done by the CoCo. Hopefully she doesn't give us a copyright strike for this. And if you're a fan of that style of music, that's kind of a preview of what her CoCo-based album is coming out is going to be like. And it's also the type of music that I used to listen to back in the day, because if I hear music that has singing, I end up singing along, and then I end up typing the lyrics into my code and stupid things like that. So I kind of got off that. That's when I started listening to a lot of instrumental music because it was less distracting, but it still gives you something to keep your brain kind of running, processing the type thing instead of just sitting.
I thought I was the only one. I totally agree with you. Exactly.
Yeah.
You start singing along with the lyrics. Don't need lyrics.
Yeah, and people start questioning your code because they suddenly see like an Ozzy Osbourne lyric coming up in the middle of some adventure game you're trying to type in. So yeah. But anyway, it's really good for that kind of background music type thing, and it's actually very well done. And as she kind of mentioned in the comments, that this is kind of like just the basic tracking. She's planning on adding more to the final stuff when she gets the actual album out. So this is like the simplified version of it. And it's like a Jean-Michel Jarre thing where it's layers of stuff that doesn't totally distract your brain with speaking and singing. So I'm a big fan of that type of music. So I'm definitely going to be considering getting our album when the whole thing comes out. Hey, because we haven't had enough OS 9 stuff today. Dave Weens, he's originally with Sardis Technologies in the 1980s. So they were the ones that sold the Performance Peripherals controller. They sold the MSF file manager and a whole bunch of other stuff. He managed to find some old disks and manuals for the CSG IMS Clearbrook software group IMS database, which was one of the more powerful database systems for OS 9, or for the CoCo for that matter. I think the only one that might have been more powerful than this was Sculptor. And he actually has scanned in the manuals now. You can actually download them. There's a couple here. The different documentation, like the reference guides, the main thing itself. He found some of the OSK versions of this too, the reference documentation here too, and he's trying to find the disk image. He's just put the disk image itself. So if you actually want to try out the database with the manuals to go with it, you can. And he actually mentions here he used it to build a custom accounting package for general ledger and inventory for Sardis when it was still running as an actual business selling CoCo stuff. And I think he's trying to find some of the OSK version stuff now because it was a much more powerful under a full 32-bit chip type thing. But the fact he's found this, he's going to be putting them up the archive too. But I think he wants to try to get the complete package, the OSK, the OS 9 version, all the manuals, everything else, and some tutorials because it's not the easiest program to learn. It's a powerful database. It's not a little wimpy one. But he does plan on putting it in the archive eventually too. But for now, if you want to kind of experiment with it, you can come and grab them right off here. He even points to some reviews. There was a review from the OS 9 newsletter in Bellingham, Washington. And this is actually the headquarters, I guess, of the Pacific Northwest CoCo Fest. I think it was called back in the 90s. Bill Noble went to one of them. Wes Gale attended. Chris Burke was there and a bunch of others too. And then a review in 68 Microjournal. So bit of historical stuff there. And also if you want a really powerful database with documentation, there you go. Next up, and this is the David Ladd special part of the show. So
I've got to go now.
just mute and have a nap, Nick. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right, so I apologize to him if I'm butchering it, but Lyserge S. Diafol. Little work in progress to add the CoCo 123 JVC MFM format. Now, JVC, I think, is the nickname for one of the emulator formats, isn't it? Isn't that Jeff Avasur?
Well, JVC, if you don't have the header on it, it's basically just a flat image, just the raw sectors, one sector after another. It's like the .img for PCs. It's the disk images that you use on the SDC every day. It's the floppy disk, the .dsk's that you use on MAME or VCC or XROR. As long as there's no special header or, special track data hidden in there, and it's just the raw sector data. That's what a JVC is.
Okay.
And because I was poking through the code, just looking through it, and that's all it looks like it's doing. He's added a section to it so that it is 18 sectors, single-sided. Interesting enough, he has it set for 40 track instead of 35. But which is still perfectly acceptable, because with the grease weasel, what it does is it's just empty. Nick, you forgot to mute.
I think that might have been on purpose.
But otherwise, this will make it easy, because otherwise, when the grease weasel first came out, the only disk image format it supported was the .scp, which was a raw flux level format that was for the CBM stuff, which I think was Commodore related. But I've been using the HXC floppy drive emulator tools to convert from SCP to like .mfm so that I could use it with MAME and other fun stuff like that.
So this is basically taking the existing software that the grease wheel is using for reading like these raw images, et cetera, and then adding some extra capabilities so that I can actually handle like
it just makes it just makes the single-sided JVC compatible flat raw sector dump, and then you can write it back as well, which is great, because then you don't need to do any conversion with other utilities later.
So one purpose of this, for a more general purpose, besides floppy nerds like yourself, is if you have some old CoCo copy protected disks, for example, the grease weasel is capable of actually reading those copy protection.
Yes, but JVC won't have that though, because JVC is just the raw sectors.
So not the raw sector, just the raw data on the sector, not the...
Right. What you're thinking about is when you want copy protection, you want the raw track data, which includes all the gap data, all
CRCs and all that other stuff.
Right. Because with copy protected stuff, there's many things that could be done, changing sector numbers,
like jumping to sector 99 or something when you've only got 18 sectors per track.
Or doing the normal sector 1 through 18, and then you hide an extra sector, because there's actually enough room if you change the gap following the Western Digital specification. There's enough room if you shrink the gap, and I've tested this, you can actually squeeze a 19th sector onto the disk by shrinking the gap by specification.
And you can go beyond that and do 20 like we've done on that one format.
Yeah, that's right. But that's throwing specification out the door. That's changing the specification values. A whole
it
bunch
works,
of other
so
stuff.
I'm accepting that as proper.
But yeah, this if you wanted the raw track data in a format that we could use with like VCC or the SDC, we would need the DMK and the SDF disk image formats. added as well.
Yeah, because DMK is the David Keel emulator is the first one to do this, but it's actually the raw track format you're talking about that MAME and VCC use, and then SDF is the equivalent for the CoCo SDC, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what we would need, because when I'm using the SDC and I'm doing the 20 sectors per track that we did way back in the day, I actually have to use an SDF disk image because, well, you need that to emulate the whole entire track stuff, because otherwise the JVC, he only does the 18 sectors period. So
okay. That part I wasn't clear on. So yeah.
So, you know, but this is a great starting point for just the standard stuff. Copy protected or special format disk images, not yet. We need the DMK and SDF added, which would be nice. Which, if you scroll down and look at my comments, you might actually see I mentioned.
You commented on this? I'm so surprised. Oh, he's even got the ooh. You can even hear that in your head, properly there when you.
So yes.
I see the host of the Color Computer Archive says, "Nice, just bought one."
Yep, and I even replied to that one.
Yeah, this is right in your wheelhouse, I think, is what we're trying to say here.
Yes. Yep. And of course, this was my first experience when I was making these blue or the F1 series grease weasels. That was my first experience with the STM fake blue pills. Darn Chinese.
Oh, there were some like scam versions of these going around?
Well, it's the way the original grease weasels were. They used a experimental board called the Blue Pill. Well, they had an STM32F103 chip. If I remember right, the part number offhand, it's you know, I don't. Yeah, but yeah, the Chinese were using fake chips and putting them on those, and I had like a good 20 or 30 boards that came in that, yeah, they failed the tests. So I was trying to figure out why the grease weasels weren't working, and the guy that made the firmware had a test firmware that you could put on it, and it would go through the testing, the DMA controllers and all that nice stuff, and it'd tell you, nope, failed, nope, failed. So every single one of those blue pills I got had fake chips.
All right, so buyer beware is what we're saying there.
Well, that's just the blue pill. I had to actually, through Mauser, buy official chips and replace the chips. Again, my first experience with replacing surface mount microcontrollers.
So anyway, it's a cool project, I think, is what you're trying to say as a summary.
Oh yes. I was looking at it. I'm thinking of adding my own flavor to it, like the JVC 20 and JVC 40. And if you're going to ask why JVC 40, well,
high density, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yes, high density. Instead of 20 sectors per track, it's 40 per track. So.
And just for those who are not, geeks from the 80s and 90s here that went through a lot of this stuff back in the day, one thing we did as a patch to OS 9 and Nitrous 9 is that if you take the gaps out between sectors, you can actually fit 20 sectors per track instead of the normal 18. So what does that actually get you? Well, with the right format command, then OS 9 would actually give you more space in your disks. So if you had, say, a 3.5-inch 720K 80-track drive normally, that exact drive, just by changing this one program, would suddenly give you 800K. And a 360K double-sided 5 1/4, which Tandy actually sold with the FD502s, suddenly becomes a 400K drive. So it gives you a fair bit of extra storage. And if you couldn't afford hard drives at the time, you wanted to get the most out of your floppies, it would give you a certain percentage increase of space on no matter what floppy. Even if you had a 35-track single-sided, you got extra. If you got a 40-track single-sided, you got extra. 40-track double-sided, I don't know, off the top of my head, went from 180K to a 200K per disk. So you basically got free storage for nothing. just by changing a program or two. So that we used to do our backups at work with this because we were backing up a 40 meg drive and an 80 meg drive. That takes a lot of floppies. And when you can fit 800K, actually we did more than that because we actually did extra tracks too. But basically you'd get 800K out of a 720K disk. And some people had said, that's out of the specs of the Western Digital controller. You might have problems. We backed up using that system for 10 years straight and had no problems aside from the regular, get a floppy disk that you can't even format eventually because it's wore out. That was the only problems we had. It was reliable. We actually restored backups off that thing numerous times. So it's very reliable. So anybody has physical floppy drives and is running Nitrous 9 and wants to get some extra storage out of them for backups purposes or whatever, I would definitely recommend doing that.
Yeah, and thanks to you, Curtis, back in the day, pointing that out, one of the things I did is I disassembled the format 20 command, found all of the how the track was supposed to be laid out. I then added that as a special option to the official format command, and then added an extra option so that the official command can actually generate that special track if you need it. And it's in the repo. And I think it should be on the EOU as well.
I think we did put it there because I originally had found the old format 20, which was a special version. So we had 2 format commands, but you made one master one that can do both. But yeah, no, it's definitely worth it. If you're still using physical floppies or have an interest in doing so, it's a way to get some extra storage for free.
I should point out, here is half of my old hard drive backup.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple more sectors per track would have been really handy.
Oh, it helped. Trust me. We did the first years where the backups using the standard 720, and then we went to 82 track plus 20 sector track. We're getting 840K per disk instead. And that, it cut down the number of disks by 10, 12%. I mean, it was huge. And it took less time. We had less time swapping and whatever else. It was just much easier all the way around. Of course, now you just have an SDC and you just carpet up your SD card onto your PC or whatever. But
yeah. Well, the other thing is that when I had my 26-3022 floppy controller, it was modified for high density. So I was doing, instead of 800K, I was doing 1.6 meg.
Yeah.
So, that was a nice space. And also being able to boot off of it was also nice.
Yeah, because you could have a full, set of commands and everything right off the bat, just like you're running off a hard drive, but running it off a floppy if you couldn't afford a hard drive.
So,
awesome.
Oh yes.
And now that we've covered Nick's most exciting part of the show, and thanks, David, for coming on to help explain
that. No problem.
What's a floppy disk?
Oh, please don't get him started. We'll be here for years.
Well, Nick, now that you've asked.
I'm going to shoot you, Nick, after the show here for that.
No, I'm kidding. Let's continue, please.
There, on to something a bit better. So, Ken, is there a clip of this you want me to play or run in the background while you kind of explain what this is?
Oh, not really. It was just run it in the background, I guess.
Okay, I will mute it. So,
yeah. So this is the second part of my CoCo trip video. I started from basically when we had supper on Sunday night to mine and Curtis's marathon drive all the way back to home, and then I went into what I picked up on my way home, on top of all the stuff that I got at CoCo Fest. So some pretty nice stuff I got there, as well as the stuff I picked up at CoCo Fest. So
yeah, because here we were at the Amigos. And this was at the end of our 40 hours straight.
Yeah.
Now you got some cool pictures I think I want to show here of the inside of the Amigos studios here, like you can see.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that you'll be seeing at Boat Fest if you decide to attend Boat Fest, which is actually only in 2 weeks. And you can see a little blurb of it in the lower left corner there. Well, that's a retro gaming thing. It's the very first one these guys are sponsoring. So they're bringing down 30 different consoles and computers, and they're going to have live play on all of them so people can join in. They're going to have a virtual pinball machine set up. There's going to be live taping of all of their shows. So there'll be a live CoCo show. I'm going to see if I can pop into CoCoTALK that Saturday and do some live show floor streaming from there as well. I think the CoCo show is scheduled for a bit later in the afternoon. It should be after CoCoTALK's done, so you guys can actually just pop on over and say hi. And I think it's Donkey Kong Jr. this week, if I remember correctly. Not one of my favorites, which I'll talk about when we get on the show. Now, you had a rather interesting experience with Google Maps, too, I think you mentioned.
Yes. When I was driving back between Saskatoon and Calgary, it took me on roads like this. Basically, I drove 450 kilometers without passing a town or anything.
And it took you down like gravel roads. You can see here in single lane bridges.
And, like, it just took me into the middle of nowhere saying, oh yeah, this way is the fastest. Well, it took me an hour longer than my normal longer way. So
did you ever fear for your life at any time?
At one point, I completely lost cell service for about 20 minutes. So I was just guessing on where I was going from that point on.
What was the gasoline situation?
Fortunately, I was driving a little Prius, so it got really good gas mileage. If I had been driving my old truck, I would have
ran out of gas because there was no gas station
halfway through. Yeah. It was 450 kilometers. There's one town I passed, and I think it had 2 houses and a grain bin.
And then here you've got, this is the haul you went in BC and actually picked up from a fan of your channel, right?
Yeah. He sold me some stuff at a very, very reasonable price. So, so I got a couple of Black Beauty joysticks in box, a Tandy cut.
And you've got both the original
Deluxe.
CoCo 1 and 2 single button and the CoCo 3 double button ones there too.
Yep. The TRS-80 single button needs a little bit of work, but I think I can steal some parts off my PC Junior joystick to fix that.
And I think some of those parts you can 3D print too, or can get somebody to 3D print for you too.
Oh, no. These sticks work their plastic way too hard.
Oh, okay.
And the one non-Tandy thing I picked up was a Commodore US-8 calculator, which...
Yeah, Taylor and Amy were quite happy you picked this up.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you get the disk drive for it?
That's beautiful.
It's got this particular model has an interesting history that I'm going to make a video about. And then there was my bin O games.
Yeah, this is a pretty good haul. And manuals included.
Yeah, and all the manuals for all the games that are in there. So
now we just have to teach you to read manuals before you play games. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
And the obligatory Megabug.
I think there's a couple of Megabugs in there.
Oh, there's 2 of them, yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few doubles there. I saw
Lifelines.
Megabug was double. There was
that's
Stellar
a
Lifeline.
stash.
Yeah.
That is a stash.
Was there a spectrum analyzer in there?
Yeah, because do you have the new one maybe or the old one? That would be interesting to find out.
Well, it's sitting at my place in BC, so I can't look right now. And then I picked up this.
Tandy and what 1000. Is this for those, especially on the audio?
Tandy 1000 TL with a CM5 RGB monitor and the Tandy Deluxe keyboard.
I figure I could steal that door and swap the label.
No. That's the reason I bought it. It had a door on it.
Spent $1,000 on that setup. You could get a new door for a CM8. Actually, I have no idea what
I don't think the CM5 and the CM8 wouldn't work because the CM5 is a smaller monitor.
Oh, okay. That's funny actually because the CM8's a bit smaller. It's a 13-inch or 12-inch. I can't remember what is it exactly.
Oh well, maybe the CM5 is a 12. I thought the CM5 was about a 12 or 13-inch. So maybe it's the same.
I know the CM8 is smaller than a Magnavox 8515, which is a 14-inch, and the Amiga monitor was a 14-inch. So that I know the CM8's a bit smaller. It's 13, I think, or 12 and a half or something.
Hey, Ken?
Hey, check out the whole video, and that talks a bit more about the driving. He's got some better pictures of stuff we drove by. And
Mark?
I was just going to say, Jeff172 says that Google Maps now defaults to the most fuel-efficient route.
Ah, yes, the most fuel-efficient route. The ones that will completely run you out of fuel.
No gas stations at all.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what? I would say that it was a way less fuel efficient route because I was driving probably up and down a lot more hills than I was in the route I usually take. And the route I usually take, you just have a speed that you go just one straight speed. You're not speeding up and slowing down constantly. Like, I think I've probably hit about 75 stop signs also on that. Because every time I was going off one highway onto another, I had to stop and get going again. So I would say
if you're on a road like you were showing pictures of,
yeah,
would you really stop at the stop sign when there's absolutely
we're
no
we're
traffic?
Canadians, so we're polite enough. We'll stop just in case there's a moose crossing or something. Yeah,
And
Well, there's
run.
the stop
It's by.
signs.
Sorry.
There's the stop signs, but there's also the complete 90-degree corners that you have to take. And you're not going to be going highway speed to go around those.
I think I figured out how it's the most fuel efficient though, because once you run out of gas, you have to hitchhike, and that's pretty well free, right?
Yeah. But I would
Just
say
seeing
by
the couches.
just I don't think people
You didn't see civilization, never
I
mind
didn't see
couches.
civilization. There was no houses or couches.
This was it. Someone has been here. They built a bridge, but they're gone now.
Yeah, but that was
This
back
was-
in 1895, and nobody's been there since.
This was just outside the one town that I passed that was a grain elevator and 2 houses.
Well, there looks like a grain bin over there on the left side.
Yeah. And a little oil thing on the right, if you can barely see it on the horizon, not the top there.
Oh,
a little
yeah.
oil rig. But this looks like Drumheller, like this is like the Badlands of Drumheller. Is this where you were?
I'm what am I? I'd be I don't know about 40 miles east of Drumheller here.
Okay. Mark
Because
Siegel in
normally
the
I would
chat
go
says
through-
you don't need gas stations. No one can afford gas anyway. So it's
Yeah, there you go.
Well, the pump's at the top of the hill there. Just
yeah, just tap in and go. I have to say the bridge looks like it got rebuilt recently, though. That looks like pretty fresh lumber.
It's pretty old.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
It's one of the ones that when
Looks
you're
like
going
a
across
steel.
it, you can see the boards in front of you flip up a little bit when you hit them.
One of those.
don't slow down.
It's like a ramp. You just hit it really fast and you clear it, and then you'll make it across the river.
Well, the bridge is perfectly fine for my cart and wagon as a horse.
But as a kind of a side note on this, I mean, this is something that we were arguing with some people at CoCoFest, that people are saying, you know, Google Maps is better than Apple Maps or vice versa. And I think it's actually dependent on where you are. Because for me in Canada, I've had the same experience. Google Maps sucks. It
Well, if
doesn't.
if it defaults to the most fuel efficient, which it thinks is the shortest way would be the most fuel efficient, it's going to take you down some real crap roads like this.
Yeah, where you run out of pavement, literally.
Yeah, like I think I drove about 50 miles on gravel roads here. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
This is like the Oregon Trail too.
yeah.
Yeah, this is Oregon Trail in real life at this point.
Yeah.
They have a little graveside on that pit on the right there that says, you know, he died of dysentery. So,
Yep.
Except this is British Columbia Trail.
Oh, this is Alberta, I think, still. Isn't
This is Alberta.
But he's going to British Columbia, so it's
Yeah.
British Columbia Trail.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, okay.
I
Oregon was
missed
the
joke, sorry.
destination, not the
True,
15 areas you went through to get there.
Yeah,
Well,
you
as long as
died
you're getting
there.
here on this map here, you might be ending up in Oregon. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just have to take the Southern Pass.
Yeah, but like I said, at least in my area, I know Apple Maps does tend to work better. There are places in the States where Google Maps definitely did work better. So maybe it's just, you know, regional who's got the most up-to-date stuff or the best algorithms for a certain area. I don't know what it is, but neither of them are perfect and neither of them are totally trash. But yeah,
Well,
I
one
had
thing
the
about
same
it-
experience.
This particular route that it sent me on was about 45 miles shorter than the route I usually take, but took me more than an hour longer than it usually takes me. So,
Right.
Yeah.
The 16th
So it
of the
completely
week,
failed.
your tires. Mhm.
I like Rocky Hill's comments here. It says, first of all, I think I saw this bridge on Ancient Aliens. And then 2, beautiful and remote. It's like the start of a murder movie.
Ooh, thanks for the idea.
it felt like it a couple of times.
I
Is
have
that
to
a
ask
guy
you
with a
one last
chainsaw
question
over
before I go
there?
on to the next. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Is that a guy with a chainsaw over there?
It looks like the team speaker regulars. That's a joke for David. One question I have to ask you before we go on to the next story here is your mom was with you on this trip. So what did she think of Google Maps guiding you around?
She was actually driving when we hit this gravel road. She pulled over immediately and said, "You're driving." I don't know where we're going, but you're driving.
No way I've been.
Yeah, it's really lucky we don't have CoCo Fest in wintertime. Or you may not have made it.
Exactly.
Now, Mark Siegel's asking, was this a 2-lane bridge? And no, this is a single lane.
This
We
was
have to take
single lane. It
turns.
was barely wider than my car, and I was driving a little Prius. So,
yeah.
Like this road that I'm on here, if you met another vehicle, you'd have to drop at least 2 tires well over onto the grass.
Oh, before the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've hit a couple of these back in the olden days. Like, I don't even know too many of these in Saskatchewan are still around, the single ones. I do remember the boarded ones where the boards flip up and down as you're driving over the thing.
Yeah.
You figure it's going to collapse at any moment.
That was this one.
Yeah. And on the BC highway up to the Alaska highway up to Alaska and BC has a few spots like that, I think, still too. But yeah, that was just insane that's what Google Map picked for you.
Yep. And it was the only route that it gave me. It didn't give me any alternatives.
Well, once you're on it, there's no other road to get onto. So,
well, that's true. But
go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just saying, 3,000 miles. This looks good. Yeah.
Yeah. You're so overtired by this point, you won't care. I'll just send you wherever I feel like it and we'll laugh.
Stop whining. You made it home.
And the funny thing is, as soon as I got past this bridge here, it's like complete switchbacks going up the side of the hills there.
Did you at least see some dinosaur bones? Because that's what they're kind of famous for in Drumheller. At least that would have made it worthwhile.
Not in this area. I think I saw some live dinosaurs.
This is the land that time forgot. Nobody's been there since.
So you ran out of pavement. You ran out of pavement. Did any time you run out of gravel too?
No, actually, they were fairly well-maintained gravel roads, or just not very driven on gravel roads, because there's a lot of slippery gravel. If you ever got up above 40 kilometers an hour, your vehicle started just kind of swishing on the gravel.
Yeah, really loose, not packed down, like a grid road. So anyway, it sounds like you had an exciting trip back. You got a lot of cool stuff, and you just about got lost forever. Awesome.
Exactly. Without phone service.
Yeah, that would have been scary. Like I mentioned to you on the trip, because you were wondering why I had an old, ratchety, a big atlas, road map atlas. And that's because I have hit areas where, a cell phone tower got damaged in a tornado or something. And if you're totally dependent on electronic maps and you're hitting a whole bunch of intersections, you've got to turn to come up, you're screwed. You have absolutely no idea where to go if you don't have cell phone access. So always carry that as a backup. I mean, it's 20 years old. There's probably some highways that have changed or maybe even been rerouted. But at least I'll be able to find my way onto something I recognize and I can still get to where I'm going. So that will stay in my car till I die.
Definitely point taken.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I sometimes do too, Curtis, is that every few years I go to Walmart and get an updated road atlas. Because, you never know. But Google Maps, I don't know about the Apple Maps one, but I know Google Maps, there's an option that you can download maps in specific areas where you plan on going, so you can actually have it pre-download.
Yeah, but who remembers to do that?
Those who doesn't want to get stuck in the middle of nowhere without a way to find their way home.
Well, I can actually tell you that I will never use Google Maps again without downloading the map.
I have a Garmin in the car too.
Buy yourself a drone. You can always just send it ahead of you and just follow a road, and then you work out beforehand if you're going to get lost.
Until the drone itself gets lost because the GPS doesn't work.
I do like the Garmin idea. What if they had satellites in the sky that you could consult from any time in any place?
Starlink.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's crazy talk, Rick. Crazy talk.
Rick, that's a good idea. Getting the time from the GPS satellites, because they send time in the data stream.
Sounds perfect. Anyway, back to the news.
Okay.
That was a fun little side trip there, literally. Okay, so next up we've got Color Computer Programming, who does his Color Computer tutorials. This particular video is just a quick one. It's not a tutorial. He just wanted to show some of the animations you can do in BASIC and the semi-graphic screen. So he's got some text moving around, some little color logos kind of flipping around here too. So I'm sure he'll do a follow-up explaining how to do it. But he's doing like these beginner tutorials, so it's just kind of showing you some things you can fiddle with. This one here I just discovered this morning. Actually, I sent this to Nick too, because one thing I'm not really good at doing computer sound. I didn't really understand a lot of how it worked, and Nick's had to explain many things over the years here to me because I'm kind of stupid at it. But Chibi Akumas, we've covered before because he's actually got 6809 and Dragon CoCo specific programming in his latest book. I think some of the people in the show here actually have his books too. I know Alan Murphy does. But this is a video that he's done on basic sound concepts as far as how to do computer programmable sound, what the different waveforms mean, how they work, how peak and amplitude work, volume, pitch, etc. But he's explaining it so it's not a specific computer that it's designed for, or a certain sound chip that's designed for. He does cover some of that, but this is going through the basics of explaining what the terminology is and how sound works as far as computer generates. So explains what a sawtooth is, and then he gives an example to play it, and goes through PCM and AVPCM and a bunch of other things. So if you want a tutorial and you want to learn how to do machine language sound and how it works at a low level, but also how to translate it from music to this to programming and back and forth, this is a really good tutorial video. Nick, I think you actually got a chance to check some of the video. What did you think, since you actually know?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, it doesn't get much into the programming of it all, but it tells you the basic concepts. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I never got. Like, I could probably program it, but I didn't understand how it works, so programming didn't really help. I had that missing piece in the middle, and this actually is a pretty good, decent way of teaching you that type of stuff. So, and he's done some other parts related to this where he shows you like on a 1-bit sound system like the Spectrum has or the Apple II has. Like, here's how you try to do it, and then on the Dragon and the CoCo, 6-bit DAC, and then he gets into some of the AY chips and some of the more advanced stuff, and kind of give you the difference between them all. But it really gives a good explanation of how sound works. If you want to see like a chart in Audacity and understand what the hell it's actually showing you, this is a good tutorial for it. Highly recommend it. Here's Jim Gary being a little bit less serious than normal. It's not a new game. It's not a new program. He took an old ad, I'm guessing from one of the old Tier City companies back in the day, and kind of just jiggered the text with Photoshop a bit here to make it an ad for his stuff for the MC10. So I think this might have originally been, I'm not sure what company this was. I do recognize the ad somewhat. It might have been Kelly Software Services or something like that out of Edmonton, because they used to do a lot of Tier City and CoCo stuff. But he actually has some of his own games listed there, like Atari Adventure and BattleBots and Berserk and Closeout. He's even got some ones by other people in the MC10 community, like Dropship by Darren Ottery and Free Cell by Christian Hoffman, which you can actually go get for the MC10. So he's kind of made a fake MC10 ad, because the MC10 never really had many advertisements. It didn't last long enough to really get its own market going. There's actually been more development in the last 2 or 3 years in the MC10 than I think there ever was. Before that, there's new games coming out. Simon's working on porting Paul's games. So
he needs to remove the Model 4 and put an MC10 on there.
Well, he was kind of keeping the original text the ad above where it says the Model 1, the 3, the Color Computer, etc. He needs to add MC10 there somewhere, though. Yeah. Okay, we got a couple updates from John Whitworth. Now, this is the one we covered last week, where he actually got diagnosed with cancer, and he's actually been out with chemo and stuff. And he's the guy who's been working on the Dragon beta, and he also runs Dragon Plus Electronics. And because of the fact he's still actively in treatments, he's basically not going to be selling completed, packaged stuff anymore. He's only going to be selling kits. So this is kind of a bit of an update. He's actually got some of the kits up on his site now. I've actually brought that page up here. So that's the power supply unit, which apparently is something on the Dragon actually does go fairly often. The Dragon Plus board kit, which is a period correct 80 column card from back in the day. And then the Super Sprite FM Plus that works in the CoCo and the Dragon, which we've covered numerous times on the show here with the Sprite engine and the sound chip and everything else built into it with a couple different options. So he's actually got some of these kits available again. They'll be, once they're sold out, he might make some more. He's just not sure when, because he doesn't know when he has to go in for chemo, etc. But with that said, he's still working his butt off here trying to get the Dragon beta. Now, we've showed that on the Cambridge Dragon 4th anniversary show and some of the other Dragon specials we've done. This was a prototype. A couple were made back in the day in '84 that Dragon was planning on selling. And it was a dual CPU, high-res graphics, MMU, 760K of RAM. It was meant to be their high-end machine. And they've been reverse engineering the original boards and figuring out, certain chips you can't get anymore. How can we make something to replace them type thing? So he's kind of giving an update here on what they've done. He's also given an update on Phil Harvey Smith has been doing some of the peripheral cards that go with it. And he's listed like 4 of them on here: a PS2 keyboard adapter, potentially a mouse, 768K memory replacement expansion, etc. And then he gave a little bit of an update in the comments here a little bit later. Recent improvements here, replacing the 12-volt signal at the video output with a more suitable SCART switching output. So we'll be able to hook this up to a SCART to get a crystal clear display. And 10 mounting holes for additional stability. 3 signals coming in from the expansion ports. I like this one. We are currently working through a mysterious part of the circuit, which looks like being a simple 1-bit sound output. So it looks like there's some features on the Dragon that might not even, on the Dragon Beta, that might not even be known. They don't have documentation on it type thing. So that's one thing he's still trying to concentrate on, like basically his well hours where he's not too sick from chemo, etc. It sounds like he's actually working on the Dragon Beta because he doesn't want to complete that, and he's kind of pushed everything else to the side so he can spend time recovering. So I wish him the best. I think we all do. And I'm hopefully that they can get the Dragon Beta basically duplicated, because it's a really awesome machine from we've seen. There was even some graphic demos and stuff we've shown on the show before that they found from the original discs when they were prototyping it at Dragon Data. So really interested in that project. This is basically the Dragon equivalent of the CoCo 3. In fact, it goes a bit beyond it. This is an interesting poll on the Dragon group on Facebook, and this was put up by another one of our former guests on the show, Richard Harding. He's kind of the archivist and historian of the Dragon community. And his question that he has on Facebook in the Dragon group is, everyone has to start somewhere. So how did you come to the Dragon fold? How did you get a Dragon? How did you become interested in Dragon? And I know there's a few people on the panel that have Dragons, so I'll ask you that same question, but I'll just mention that on the poll they're taking here, which is mostly people in the UK. The number one is Christmas Present, 1982, which is when the original Dragon 32 came out. Discovered post-80s retro collecting is second place, and has a real keyboard is third, which back then, that was when the CoCo had a chiclet keyboard, and Sinclair Spectrum had rubber keys, and the ZX81 had the membrane Atari 400 style one. So that definitely was a big selling point. It was a beautiful keyboard. So for those of you in the panel that have Dragons, whether it's a 32, a 64, or a Tano, what got you into getting a Dragon? And I know, like David, you have one. I think Ron, you've got one, and anybody else wants to pipe in. So
I got mine from the company that sold them,
California Digital.
Yeah, and it was $50, and it came real quick. And the reason I got it was because I think at the time I might have been on CompuServe, and there was talk about the Dragon. And I was interested because it was a 6809 machine, and I thought, well, cool, I got software, so why not get it and see if it'll work. But then I realized it's going to be cassette based because there's no hard drive, or the drive controller and floppies aren't going to work with it. So I was kind of disappointed about that, and it mostly sat for years until recently when the SDC was able to work with it. And
yeah, they didn't have their own drives, but they were done totally different than ours that weren't compatible.
Yeah. So that's my story.
Okay, David Ladd, you're next.
All right. Well, for me, there were multiple reasons. I got it because I wanted to be able to, with OS 9 level 1, I wanted to be able to work with you and have real hardware so we could try to get the CoCo VGA working better under that environment. Because if you don't have hardware, it's kind of hard to test it yourself. And I always had to then shift some of my stuff back to either Ron Klein or someone else that actually had the hardware. The other thing I did get was Pear, or I don't know all how the names are done, but there's a guy that took and was reproducing the Dragon floppy controllers, but it had built into it the GoTech hardware. So the first drive was emulated. So you had the GoTech built right into the floppy controller and an external floppy controller port, so you could plug another floppy drive into it. Of course, you know me, real floppy drives. And so I got that. And the other thing I wanted to mess around with was the real parallel, and the Tano has the 6551 built into it like the Dragon 64. So therefore you have a real serial UART in it. And I wanted to do some stuff related to that, all on that machine. But then of course some personal issues came up right after I got it, which of course then it's just been sitting stacked over there. So
you got it more from a development perspective then, kind of.
Yes. It's for me, it's kind of hard to test something, and emulators are nice for convenience, but emulators do not always emulate hardware correctly. So it's always best to have real hardware handy to test something.
Yeah. I think Nick and I and Rick and a bunch of others will agree with you on that.
And so from my standpoint, that's why I wanted it. I wanted to be able to actually test the stuff that we were working on. I really didn't like relying on someone else to test it and feed data back, because not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody writes comments the same way. And sometimes you just have to see the results for yourself of what's going on. So,
nobody thinks the way you do.
Thanks, Mark B. Thanks.
Anybody else in the panel have a dragon? And
yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead. And what was your reason for getting it?
Steve Batson was talking about it in the Facebook CoCo group, and talking about the trials and tribulations of dealing with California Digital. And you just basically have to send off your money, basically you have to pay in advance and send a check or a money order. And then just wait patiently and don't badger the guy, because he is very persnickety about such stuff. But anyway, I figured I got a Christmas bonus in 2016. So I thought, I should probably get one of those. And so I sent some money off, and, they were new in box. Basically, the guy had a storage unit full of them. And I did ask him how many he had left. He said only about a dozen. So they're basically out about 2017. Anyway, so, it's got the same basic processor as the CoCo 1 or 2. It's got the same SAM and all that. And basically it works the same way, except it does have a built-in 1651, just like RS-232 pack.
And a real parallel port and a real keyboard port.
Yeah, and a real keyboard. And so, yeah, in a lot of ways, it would have been the killer system for developing CoCo software on back in the day. Anyway, so I have one. It's cool.
Cool. Anybody else in the panel have a dragon? I don't. Nope. Okay. So if you have dragons and you haven't already joined the Dragon Facebook group, you should. And if you have, but you haven't seen this poll yet, you should go and fill in, what your reason was for getting it, because they're kind of amalgamating all these stories here. And you can add your own category at the end too, if none of the 14 that are on here right now actually fit your particular circumstance. I always find this kind of stuff interesting. Some of the ones we just covered, like the top ones, but there's other stuff like didn't want a C64 as everyone else had them.
Right.
8% actually said the Microsoft Basic or 609 programming. So they got it for the programming side of things, because we had one of the better basics at the time. There's others that you were mentioning, like the BBC Micro. They preferred that, but it was way too expensive, so they couldn't afford it. So they got a Dragon instead. So it's an interesting kind of seeing like what the situation was back like in the 80s. And my last story here, and I will play this mostly in its entirety. Apparently there was a demo scene thing going on called Field FX 2022, and a Dragon one called The Green Machine actually won first place. This is a demo with some music that the Dragon's generating and some semi-graphics or graphics images being used. The semi-graphic stuff is animated in scrolls. The other P Mode 3 style ones are just static, but it compressed them all to fit on a tape. It's a single load tape. Well, it's actually 2 loads. There's the semi-graphics one is 1 demo, and then you flip the tape and you get the other one. So it's got some music, and I'll kind of use that as an outro for the end of the news segment here. So I'll play that. And congratulations to the author for actually writing a demo that competed and actually won the competition. Slipstream is the author, the nickname of the author. Anybody know who that really is? And let me know if the volume's too loud or not, or too quiet.
Is this while the program's loading?
I love these load screen things.
Pretty good music routine, though.
Whoever's doing this talk is talking too much.
Too fast to read.
Yeah, just about. You might be dropping some frames with me streaming it too. It probably it's a bit easier on the actual.
Well, there's that too. You'd be scrolling at 2 pixels at a time too.
So this will be ported to the MC10, huh?
I don't think you'd be able to do the sound as well.
No,
Because
I
it's
don't
only 1
think
bit
so.
sound versus 6. Graphic wise, yeah. And now part 2.
And the Amiga floppy drive thing.
Yeah.
That sounds like he's added the music, overlaid it on the video.
Well, my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the
Because he was
Dragon's actually
loading
generating
the
the music.
tape then, and it didn't stop, and it, yeah.
That'd be a pretty unimpressive demo if it's just doing an audio on.
That's what I'm thinking.
I know this sounds more like something like the Stuart Orchard or Karen sound routine to me. I think it's
That looks
legit
like
sound.
Saul Goodman, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I think this is where it starts repeating. Oh, maybe not quite yet.
Art.
I'm pretty sure Simon could probably say that it is possible to load graphics and play sound at the same time from tape.
Well, he has done that, but it doesn't. It's not to this fidelity, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure because like I said, Dick Stewart on some of the stuff that he's done, he's actually got music that plays like this, like the header music on his uncompleted game. I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head, the Xevious style thing.
But you're thinking this doesn't come from the tape; it's actually from the computer.
I think so, but I'm not positive because I don't know too much about
It
the
could
demo
be. This could be a really nice, like the load screen thing that used to happen, where you would run things while the tape loaded. This could be a really extreme example of that, or it could be just totally fake.
Actually, I just noticed there's a thing here. I don't know if this will tell us, but let's go find out.
Yeah, just find out.
Well, you can download it, and I'm assuming that wouldn't have actual.
So if you play it, it would make that really ugly noise, and then in between there would be music, right?
It doesn't say anything else there.
Right.
Well, it says this
Yeah.
TO Box did the code, graphics, and music. I think it's generated by the Dragon. I don't think it's an audio on. I honestly don't. But I can't prove that. Maybe somebody wants to download the actual demo here from GitHub and actually try it out.
Well, let me go see if I can find the show notes so that way I can get the URL so I can download it and check it out.
Well, here I'll post it in the chat. The link to the actual disk image GitHub thing here. If people want to report back for next week, I'd be interesting to hear. Like, it could be an audio on trick, like some of the educational software Tandy put out back in the day.
Well,
I've also heard the Dragon do some decent, synthesized style SID music style things too. So I know it can do it. And Stuart Archer did it on his I'm forgetting Return of the Beast. The intro music for that.
Just take CPU time.
So if it's
when he showed the floppy loading image, I assume that was showing you when it was loading. The music did not stop. There was no delay, no clicks at all in there. That indicates to me that the sound is being played separately.
Is that a WAV file we'd be downloading? Or
I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, we need to see some docs.
So, David, do you want to take the ball on that one and kind of download that
That's
link?
what I'm trying to do. Where did you put the link?
I put it in the I put it in the Twitch chat. I guess you probably want it in the actual.
Yeah, if you could put it in even in this chat, so that way I could at least get to it.
Okay.
Because I'm not watching the show because I don't have the bandwidth to watch the stream and be on Zoom.
What happens if you click on the names down there where it says credits? Well, who does it go to?
Credits.
The green machine there.
Yeah,
But it
that's just the
doesn't
guy.
talk about
all
it.
his
Yeah.
other
Green Machine code, graphics, music.
That just takes it back.
It
here.
doesn't really say anything.
See if what's on his.
Well,
GitHub.
it would just be code and graphics if it was all
Here we are. Is this it?
right.
Cool.
Dragon intro WAV. There's a WAV file there.
Well, that could be just the cassette loader too. I don't know.
Well, yeah, there was kind of a history of load animations and things that would play while your game loaded or whatever. Could this be an extension of that where we are actually loading the music we're listening to while we listen to it and therefore staying ahead of our memory limitations? And this could be interesting.
What if you stop the tape player? Would the music continue?
Right, that kind of thing.
That would be a test, right?
One of the files is a Dragon intro bin, DGNTRO bin.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, if it's just playing audio in the background from the tape itself, that's much less impressive to me then, because it's just displaying static images or scrolling with semi-graphics text, which is nothing.
That would hardly be a demo. That would just be kind of.
Well, wouldn't it be kind of ingenious to get the computer to stop and load and just have sound? And I mean, you have to.
Well, no, I mean, all the
program
educational
it.
games that Tandy did this like 40 years ago. That's not impressive at all.
The thing we never got was the sort of, you get an animation, little graphics, maybe some thing.
Oh, 660 saying, yeah, Nick's right. He said, yeah, the audio is in the WAV. I pulled from GitHub, building the binary and running it silent. So
there you go.
I'm less impressed now.
Poop, yeah.
So forget most of what I said earlier.
Already did.
Oh, well.
Well, what did you say?
Well, I thought he was doing it like Stuart Orchard did in Return of the Beast, where it's actually the dragon is generating the multi-voice musical percussion and everything else, and that is impressive.
Like I said, I thought the fidelity was too high to be also loading. You can do it. Simon's done it, but the fidelity, it does take a bit of a hit. And that was sounding fairly clean and didn't stop at all. So
this is why I asked Nick questions about sound and music generation, because I just said beyond me apparently. So,
but didn't they make the music, even though it's recorded, sound like it come from the machine?
Yeah, it might have. Yeah, it might have been done on the CoCo, but separately.
Or it might have just been done on a SID chip in the C64, and he just borrowed the music.
Could be just on the video.
Don't play that.
No, but that's the thing. I mean, I'm a lot less impressed. Like 99% less impressed now than I was at first. So Stewart's is then back to being the number one sound demo for the Dragon.
I think so.
Well, that sucks. That was going to be my big outro. It was going to be an awesome program with awesome sound generated by the Dragon. That was going to be the closeout of the news segment, and I'm so disappointed now.
What else you got?
That was it. That was the last story.
All we got now is the outro.
Thanks for shooting down the entire show on
And
me,
we
Nick.
end on a low note.
Quick, David, lad, save us.
Yeah, talk about the floppy some more. That was awesome.
Flux density. Yeah, come on.
I mean, to be honest, that the kind of thing where I used to take some of the Rainbow had those graphic programs. I think I can't remember who wrote them, but basically they were taking like logos of rock bands and stuff. You remember there's a couple of those that were made.
Yeah.
Rainbow Rock Fest or whatever the heck it was called. And I used to take those programs, modify them so the image would jump around a little bit, switching pages or something. And then I'd have it do audio on, motor on, and play like Van Halen behind the Van Halen logo. That's dead easy. That's not hard to do at all. That should not have won a demo competition. Unless the demos are in basic, well, then I might be a bit more impressed, but not even by that much.
Right. I thought I saw where this was going, but I was totally wrong. Because they did have that whole, we can run this program while we're loading the program that we're really going, the loading screens on a lot of the tape programs.
I guess if he's actually loading the graphics while keeping the audio in the background simultaneously, even with audio on.
Well, if he was doing stuff like that, it would be cool. But no, it's just draw a picture.
So do you think they used left track, right track, one track data, one track music?
I don't think the CoCo can actually read the separate tracks.
Yeah,
it was mono.
It's mono. One.
So no.
The CoCo doesn't have a stereo input. It's mono through the cassette port.
Plus that.
What you get?
Hate to say it, David was right.
You could use, I guess, a cartridge and have the audio one track come into the cartridge and then get blended in.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we did have some stereo recording hardware add-ons you could buy. I believe Triad sold one.
But that's not really. Yeah, it's not really what the demo was showing.
Yeah, because this is going to be played for everybody, and it has a machine.
Anyway.
No,
sorry, folks. I was expecting a more impressive outro, and then I'm
right. You thought it was cool, but
Mythbusters.
I have my tail between my legs right now. Let's put it that
way. Moral of the story: don't invite Nick.
Actually, just not listening to Nick, I think, would have covered that. But
it could actually be cool though if you had an MP3 player that you loaded up and then it just read a cassette and the cassette stayed ahead of the MP3 file. That would be a really cool demo.
Well, don't you give them any credit for having us flummoxed for a while?
Yeah.
If he's purposely trying to pull the shade over our eyes.
Yeah,
well, I have to
exactly.
give him credit there, I guess. At least for me. It didn't fool Nick for 5 seconds, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we have CoCoTALK. Our investigative crew made it
live investigative reporting. Debunking the bunk.
Right.
Come on to CoCoTALK where we will shoot you down.
Because
the only way I'd be more disappointed is if Mikey came on and said that the entire demo he's been doing on the CoCo was all fake and done on the emulator. That's
except it actually works.
Actually, I was going to say something, but no.
Worse, it was Photoshop and Blender.
Why did it say unknown computer at the top?
Oh, I missed that.
Did you notice that when he was running? It said unknown computer.
Oh, what you're talking about Mikey's demo?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the generic level 1 build, I think, with just the CoCo VJ added on. So
I don't know. There's a conspiracy there.
We were talking about column alignment earlier. His demo is actually a good example of that. If your card's working good, everything goes in a line all the way down the screen.
Yeah.
I just thought that was neat.
Now, Mark Siegel's saying you could encode data into music, so it's actually loading those screens, literally while it's playing the music.
Well, that's what Simon did.
Yeah.
That's what Simon did, but you don't get that fidelity of the music, though. you do it chops up the sound, the waveforms, so it's not quite as clean as that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Anyway, I'd say that's the end of the show there. Sorry for the downer.
Yep.
Rocky Hill says,
Yep.
did Nick enjoy telling kids that Santa doesn't exist either?
Oh yeah, that was great. You should have seen
You're not
that.
gonna, you're not gonna bring
Oh,
the
don't
Easter
forget the
Bunny
Easter
into
Bunny.
this. Please, can we just end it quick?
Yeah.
Yes, play the outro. Let's derail this train.
Take us out of
now.
my misery, Mark.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer, MC10, and Dragon systems. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weasler, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, George Jansen, Grant Leedy, James Diffendapper, Jason Reichert, Jim Brain, Ken Reichert, Ken Waters, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many, many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's IMACOCONUT.com. The original CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever!
Do you put double WD-40 in there?
And the grease weasel?
Yeah.
Great 90
They got to remember, nobody heard that comment because they were listening to the outro. So,
We're back now.
all right, that's the show for this week. Download the new Paul Shoemaker game and participate in the Game On Challenge. It's a really cool, fun game. 32K CoCo 1, 2, or 3. We're hoping to get a dragon version out, and by we I mean Paul and Paris Rat. We can get that out, fairly soon as well. So, and joining on the live game playing stream on Thursday evening, hosted by Sloopy and Ken. Ken still on the call? I can't see.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I already posted a score too.
Yes, I saw that. Your score's already been beaten.
Yeah, I know, but I was the first one to post them.
What time is that on, Ken? Because I heard you and Sloopy talking in the pre-show about some time change or something. Or is that
I
something
don't
else?
know what Sloopy's planning. Normally we start at, oh God, I don't even know what time it is here.
6 o'clock Central, so
Yeah, sure.
7 Eastern.
So
Sounds
is that
right.
changing then? Is that what's happening?
I'm not sure what Sloopy was alluding to there. He wanted to talk about making it Friday nights, but that doesn't work very well because we'd have the Game On Challenge closed before we'd be doing the live stream. So
Yeah.
So Ken, do you have to leave there and go shoot yourself some dinner?
No, I gotta pull out the fishing rod and catch it.
Oh.
Even
So
got
you
a new
turn off-
kayak to go hunt the fish down with. So
Yep.
You turn off the generator after you're done here at the show?
No, that's the sun.
Oh.
We're far enough
No.
north here; it doesn't get dark till like 10 at night.
I
so-
can't do at night. I might not have any power.
Ooh.
Or after dark, Coco after dark.
Literally.
Sorry.
It'll
This
be in the
place-
dark.
This place where you're at's just past that bridge.
No, it's quite a ways away from that. I'm
That's
in,
Coco Dark after civilization, is what
yeah.
that was.
I'm just in the middle of nowhere in northwestern Ontario right now.
Yeah, we should start off our next CoCo show with the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, where they are clicking the bones, you know.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you all next
Bye,
week.
everybody.
Bye,
See you
everybody.
next week. Thanks for sticking
Bye.
around.